Hello, sumo fans.
We're back.
Man, this was I don't know the word. The adjective for this one? Good. Fun, exciting, something.
There was an aura of something.
Secret sauce.
Yeah, just a lot of different things that happened that were either surprising or in some cases disappointing, sometimes really exciting, sometimes devastating if you want to talk about injuries, because there were some pretty bad injuries.
Bad stuff.
And we're always worried about that, and it turned out this was the tournament where some guys were going to have some serious situations. So, yeah, it was a toss-up. I guess in a way we kind of thought something like a weird tournament was going to happen eventually, but you're never prepared for what it actually is.
Yeah, well, what we didn't want was the crash course that we had last time. July was amazing, but we were like, we need a different tune there. Sort of had it, sort of didn't. This is taking nothing away from Terunofuji. By the way, congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
3 in a row now. Oh, 2 in a row.
And he's won 5 titles, which I believe makes him 1 behind Kakiryu for total titles, which would be interesting for... We'll get into it when we get into Terunofuji, but there's an interesting factor there.
Yeah. So, let us stop at the top, as we always do, and with Hakuho, who was benched by COVID, so he was 0-0-15. We had a lot of things to say about Hakuho before, but I think part of what shaped this tournament to be the unique secret ingredient was that Hakuho was not here.
Right, and that's really the major ingredient you need to have chaos.
Yes.
With that being said, it almost felt like... I think Hakuho's missed every September for a long time now. Even back when he wasn't in as bad a shape as he is now. When I first started watching sumo, he was out in September. So it's almost like Destiny was like, yep, another September. And I didn't hear any complaints from him, so he was probably happy to have it off.
I do think that him being benched was sort of the best case scenario, both for Hakuho and then for everyone else.
Because he's probably not ready.
I doubt he would have been ready. If he were fighting, I would have fully expected a pullout or something would have happened, like a day 2, breaks a knee again kind of a thing. This also will give us a healthier Hakuho in November.
Which is what we want. Which
is going to make for some fireworks at the end of the year, which is always great. And it also, if Hakuho does do this one-on, one-off kind of thing, then it'll extend Hakuho fighting.
Right, and that's kind of the major goal. And COVID's like a get-out-of-jail-free card.
It is.
The Sumo Association will not come down on you because they're the ones who told you couldn't compete.
Exactly.
So everybody wins in that sense.
Yeah.
Now, if Hakuho was coming in hard and strong, that would have been a totally different story.
That would have sucked a little bit.
But I think at his age and his situation, he'll take any cards he can get. I want to make one note. I went back and watched Hakuho versus Terunofuji years ago before the fall. And Terunofuji out-muscled Hakuho out of the ring. He ultimately ended up losing that tournament to Kakiryu. But it was interesting to see him out-muscle Hakuho because then Hakuho made a comment about July where he had said, yeah, Terunofuji's got the upper body strength, but I got the legs. And so it was interesting because Hakuho obviously knew he could get out-muscled man-on-man, but he knew he could do his Hakuho shuffles and turn the tides. I just found that to be particularly fascinating.
He had figured it out.
Yeah.
Downloaded the information.
So I believe that fight was in 2014 or something like that. So Hakuho was in really good shape and Terunofuji just muscled him right out.
Yeah. I would expect Terunofuji to win that strength fight today as well.
Right. So just a little interesting tidbit there.
So we'll have to see if Hakuho is ready in November. We would assume he is. Let's not jinx it.
Right. July at least gave us something to hope for, that Hakuho's got a lot more left in the tank if given the proper rest.
Yeah, and it seems that Hakuho's fire got reignited, so he won't be benched until somebody throws him out.
Yeah, they're literally going to have to throw him out.
They're going to have to throw him out at this rate. But in any case, more to come later. Next up, we have our Yusho winner, Terunofuji.
Once again, congrats.
Yep. Shin Yokozuna I think according to the replays, there was only like 5 people.
5 people in their Yokozuna debut to win the title in their debut.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. That puts Terunofuji in a great spot. It's showing that he's carrying himself like a Yokozuna. The pressure didn't get to him. The new ring entering ceremony, new responsibilities. Now, with Hakuho out, the spotlight was even more on him as the top guy, and he just sort of took it all in. My takeaway from this is what I'm calling the Terunofuji immortality paradox. So this has been happening. There was some of it in July, but like the brand of sumo that Hakuho and Terunofuji were doing was superhuman, so they were untouchable. But with Terunofuji, like, he kept like bringing the best out of his opponents. Everybody wanted to be the guy to beat Terunofuji, and they tried their damnedest.
So we got awesome matches because of that.
It's this thing that somebody comes up, like they get the belt grip where Terunofuji's tipped onto his weak knee, and you're like, oh no, this is going to be the one. And then Terunofuji reverses it, and I'm like, can't
with
beat
a
him.
Confident look on his face.
He just handled it all, and the amount of pressure which buckles literally is destroying the rest of the upper ranks below him. And we'll get to them in a bit. And he's just like, I'm the Yokozuna.
He reminded me of a snake that eats a mouse. And when the snake first eats the mouse mouse is scrambling and fighting and everything. And the snake just adjusts. And then the mouse tires out and the snake eats the mouse. That was Terunofuji for me.
It was great fun to watch. We had mentioned before that we weren't sure like the form his next story would take. Like if this is what he's just going to be doing, if we can get a year of this, if not more.
Right, and that's really the question, is how long can he go? It seems like he's going to go forever with the way that he's fighting. So the point I was making earlier about how he's up to title number 5, I believe Kakuryu only got 6 titles. In such a short period of time, Terunofuji is creating a career. Like, in a short period of time, he's taken what some guys take, 10, 15 years to do in, like, the span of 2 years. Which is amazing. Now, to take it down a little bit, he doesn't have the competition Kakuryu had. There was Hidenoumi, there was Hoshoryu, there was Hakuho at his prime. So I'm not taking anything away from Kakuryu, but I do still think it's amazing with the state of sumo that he could, like when he retires, no one's going to look at when it happened. They're just going to say, oh wow, look, he was tied with Kakuryu. If I'm assuming he's going to surpass him. It's amazing. It's very cool that he can do this.
Yes, and worth noting that, towards your point, there are some people who've been struggling to get one cut.
Yeah.
And some people who retire with full decorated careers without a cut.
Exactly.
And so the fact that he's just scooping up 3 in the case of 6 years and may get another one.
And he hasn't been in the upper division that long. He was tooling around at the bottom. All these guys who've been up here way longer than him can't seem to figure out the formula. I will say this. I saw a lot of negative backlash about the Takayasu shove at the end because Takayasu got hurt. I hope people would just consider the fact that it's a brutal sport, and when you're in the middle of a brutal battle, sometimes those things happen.
Yeah, I can see the argument for the extra shove, but when you are fighting Takayasu, you can't 75% it.
No, because he could do one of those turnaround things and you lose, and it's... So, I think the intent wasn't to be like, you punk. It was, I gotta make sure I won this match.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just felt like bringing that up because it is a shame what happened to Takayasu, but this is a brutal sport, and bad things happen every day.
Yeah.
And Terunofuji doesn't necessarily strike me as the type who would go out of his way to injure somebody on purpose. Some guys would. Some guys, you look at them and you go... Yeah, that was, I'd be worried about fighting him. But I don't think that's Terunofuji.
Terunofuji's contained. But, congratulations again. This is probably the best start he could hope for outside of his end show, which I think, if anything, having a loss or two is better.
Yeah, too much pressure.
Less pressure. You're not as grounded.
I mean, just think about how you're like on your toes every single day. Can't lose. You lose a couple, but you still keep going.
So next up we have our troubled Ozeki. Shodai Ozeki won East 8-7, and we saw every Shodai. Every Shodai under the sun. We saw angry Shodai. We saw dominant Ozeki Shodai. We saw the chaos Shodai. We saw the mopey Eeyore Shodai. We saw the guy who's really good at the edge. At first, when he had because he was on a tear. And I'm like, okay, bad start in the beginning. Hoshoryu has his number, but then he starts getting some real good stuff. He's reversing people at the edge. He, the replay against Wakatakakage, when Wakatakakage, it looks like he just got, Dragon Ball Z slapped.
Yeah.
And he's whoa, his limbs play. I'm just like, whoa, this guy can do that. This is the Shodai we want. And then he loses 4 in a row at the end of the tournament. It's like, ugh.
And he didn't look too good either. It was sort of very unsure. Especially when you lose to Ichinojo, because he's captain, which guy are you going to show up today? So that sets the tone. I think that set the tone for him in that next half, where once he lost to Ichinojo, you're done.
It's that also. Now, both of the Ozeki seemed to cautiously hit their off switch when they hit 8 wins. Takakeisho, we'll get into him. And
he's a separate story.
A lot more of a valid reason, I would say. But for Shodai, 8-7 is nice. He's got a winning record. But my goodness, this is the most consistently inconsistent Shodai I've seen in some time.
Yeah, and I hope it's not going to be a trend where we just see kabuki theater when he's on the dohyo. Because I really felt like the no mask was out, and I don't know what to say about him. And I know, one of the coaches on the side was, yelling at him at one point.
It was
Terunofuji's coach, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, he was just chief judge at the time. I think it was actually when he was fighting Ichinojo. He does 3 matas. Yeah. Because he's not putting his hands down properly, and then they cut to the guy yelling at Shodai. He's like, put your hands down.
Right, because you're an Ozeki, you're supposed to set a certain standard. The guy, maybe he needs some therapy or something.
He needs,
I don't think it's a physical thing.
Well, that's the thing. If anything, this tournament proves it's not a physical thing, because he can do all of the tricks, and he does against the strong people. I think, what was it? Tamawashi goes in guns blazing. The guns blazing that almost gets rid of Terunofuji, that almost gets rid of Takakeisho. He's just whatever. You do nothing to me. And he throws him out.
Right. So it's did you have a good mindset that day? Did you meditate before the match? What happened on the good days? Do that again. Well, at least he's entertaining.
I guess you don't know what Shodai will show up. There's a little bit of mystique, perhaps.
I guess on the positive side, which will join with Takakeisho, that's the surprise of the tournament for me, is for now, we are intact with Ozeki, and we can wipe the slate clean and try again in November.
Yes.
We're not in danger of having no Ozeki, which in the beginning I was like, oh, we're going to have no Ozeki. This is a disaster. So at least Shodai can hang in there.
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
Yeah, so we were concerned about could he handle the lone Ozeki pressure. At minimum, he did the minimum amount to handle it.
What's interesting is he won the 4, the Takakeisho, well, he won at least 3 where Takakeisho was losing. Mm-hmm. It's like he had some sort of, I gotta be the Ozeki here.
There's some of that. Well, we'll have to, there's that something. Maybe it's therapy. Maybe he needs that rival.
Yeah. He's got nobody, it's not working right now.
Everybody's looking past him.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I gotta fight Shodai today? Whatever.
So maybe a little, look at somebody else, Shodai gets his consistency a little better. People start gunning for him, and he starts fighting for them. If we get more Ozeki that aren't scandals, then...
Well, I think he's the one who's Oyakata had to retire because of a scandal, too. He might not have consistent coaching or something.
Couldn't help if that's the case.
I mean, that would explain the chaos.
A little bit.
So we'll see what happens with that.
So, again, Shodai got his 8 wins. He needs more, but at least for now, we're a little bit of stability. So next up, Takakeisho. Ozeki won West 8-7. He put us through every single emotion you can feel while watching sumo.
Yes, and I really mean it when I say I'm not going to have a favorite sumo wrestler. When he retires or whatever happens, it's way too hard. And I wake up with anxiety thinking about watching his match. Sometimes I think about fast forwarding the match to see the result and then going back and watching it. I don't feel that way with anybody else. So it's like, you're wrecking my life, man. You're taking years off my life.
He did get that 6-win streak, though, was very promising, not just because that got him to his 8 wins, but some of the sumo he was fighting there, you can tell this is Ozeki level sumo. Even without the power, even without the ability to launch people out of the dohyo. The way his timing, the way he watches people, the movements, the footwork.
The willingness to try some different things because he knew he didn't have the power, but he had in his mind that I'm going to win anyway.
Did you see him grab the belt on Terunofuji and then use that as a way of maneuvering? I'm like, this boy is taking risks.
Now, I thought that was fascinating because he had nothing to lose at that point, and he knew he couldn't go power for power. So I'm glad he tried something new.
Exactly.
Because you can only get that experience in the ring, and this was a safe time to say, what would happen if I got the belt? What would it feel like? So I hope he learned something from that he can take actually into future tournaments. Yes, he did get bowled like a bowling ball and thrown into the gyoji, and it's very funny and everything, but I actually saw it as a positive because he doesn't try for the belt because he's got this power thing. So this was a good tournament for him, as weird as that might sound, because he was forced to try other things.
Forced to try other things. He cleared Katoban. You can sense, the fact that he just sort of lost out the last 3, his focus was clear Katoban. Clear Katoban. That had to have been everything in his mind. And then he got it. So in November, he can set his sights a little higher.
Right. Try to recover a little bit better. And here's the other thing. We're so used to Ozeki and Yokozuna, dogging it. Either going in and out of Kataban, which keeps happening to Takakeisho because of injury, or get your 8 wins and drop out. And he didn't do that. He's like, no, I'm going to fight Terunofuji, and I'm going to stick through. And just from a personality standpoint, and this might be a disaster for him. He may not be thinking clearly with the attitude he has, but that is the thing I admire about him. The fact that all the journalists were saying, think about the long term, just drop out after he lost those 4, and he refused to do it. And he didn't even give a comment. He didn't get on there and say, well, this is what I think, and just say a bunch of crap. He's like, no. And he just showed up. He did what he had to do. And then he fought out the rest of the tournament because being Ozeki means something to him. Mm-hmm. And after seeing what Goeido and Takayasu and even Hakuho doing at the end of their careers, it was kind of refreshing to see somebody work through it. I do hope it's not for his detriment, but as a fan, I really appreciate the effort and the commitment to being an Ozeki.
Working man's Ozeki.
Working man's Ozeki. He may not be your pick to be the next Yokozuna, and he may not be able to become the next Yokozuna, but he's going to be the hardest working Ozeki that there is in this current crop. And that should mean something.
We'll see who the next Ozeki is as well. But good news, we got our Ozeki survived. Woo! Cleared Katoban, everybody won. No more Katoban talk for 1 tournament at least.
I know, it makes me so happy that we get a reset.
Just a full reset. We got rid of that other stuff. Just stability. For 1 tournament.
We get some stability.
We get a nice time in the garden to just enjoy it.
Yes, I am looking forward to that.
Yes. So at least one thing in November, just one thing not to worry about. So, next up, we have Mitakeumi, Sekiwaki won East 9-6. So he came out, guns blazing, he's got that new belt, got the energy, was first off in the Yusho race because he was in the 2-loss pack, and then he had 3 losses, and that was sort of the chasing, but not really because Terunofuji was still a little too high, and so we're like, okay, no, he's got 8 wins and 3 losses. We're like, this is a guy who's building up. Finally, we could talk about an Ozeki run, and he loses 3 more.
Yeah, I like your question. At what point is it our own fault for getting our hopes up? What I think I see in Mitakeumi now is he hypes himself up. He's got in his head, I got this. And when it works, he's got it. But the second anybody puts doubt in his head is when he gives up. And that's the only thing that makes sense to me. I mean, some of his losses were just like, I can't do it. Like, that's how it feels. That maybe not what it is, but that's how it feels. It's like he isn't hungry when he's losing. He just lets it fall apart. It's almost like it's got to be perfect or it's done. So, I don't know. It's got to be a mental thing for him, definitely. He might be very similar to Shodai in terms of, giving up. But I don't know. I mean, it could be an endurance thing, and he doesn't admit it. It could simply be that he runs out of gas because he doesn't train as hard as everybody else. I keep hearing that from the different commentators, that his coach is on him like, you don't train hard enough. And that's a personality trait. I mean, think about, like, college or something. Some people can study, and they can study and study and study, and they do awesome. And there's just some people that they'll study enough. And they'll be happy to get like that 90. They don't need the 97. And they just can't bring it out of themselves to try any harder than they do. And that's Mitakeumi for me.
Career Sanyaku, if anything. But a 9 and 6 at the top. And as we go through the lists of 8 and 7, 7s and 8s and worse.
He's looking pretty in that respect.
He's looking pretty. I mean, I think he's just going to be up there.
He's just going to be the bar to hop over.
Yep, he's going to be a gatekeeper of sorts.
Yeah, that's a positive way of looking at it anyway. He's a gatekeeper. Can you get past the gatekeeper?
But again, 9 and 6. It's like on paper, you're like,
he did good.
Did good.
Right, you'd have to actually be really paying attention to his matches to feel like, but it could have been more.
Could have been double.
You could have been fighting Terunofuji for the tournament, but no.
Well, speaking of Terunofuji, what was interesting is he did have a Tachi Gambit against Terunofuji that he tried to get him out really quick. Mm-hmm. And nearly got there, but again, going back to the immortality paradox, Terunofuji's just like, nope.
Right, he absorbs the attack.
Got staggered back, resisted, and then set in, and like as soon as they did the stalemate, I'm like,
you're done.
He done it. But he tried.
He did.
This goes towards what you were saying, that like it's for him, it's perfection or oh well. He doesn't. If any time in the trenches, Mitakeumi seems to shy away from it.
Yeah, and like I said, that's probably a personality thing. You're not going to change that very easily.
Not something he needs a catalyst, or just enjoy being Sanyaku 1 East for his whole career, which is terribly not bad. Right,
as you said, these are the best top guys in sumo, and he's in the top. He's not going to be the top, but hey, he's in the top.
Someone else in the top. Meisei, Sekiwaki 1 West, 8 and 7.
My favorite.
Squeaked it out.
I'm not gonna let you replace Takakeisho because I can't deal with having another favorite. But I've felt very good about Meisei for a long time. I'm glad.
There was definite nerves, and a lot of his sumo near the tail end was a bit of these like quick desperation slapdowns. Mm-hmm. It's like 8 and 7 is. Like 8 and 7 and 7-8, they're a gulf apart.
Especially when it comes to being in Sanyaku. Yes. It's not a big deal if you're not in Sanyaku because it's like, all right, you might fall a little bit, but you want to keep Sanyaku at all costs.
All costs. And now that he's sort of crossed that threshold of holding, first he barely held Kamasubi, now he's barely held Sekiwaki, so it's like he's building that foundation. Mm-hmm. And he's showing he's got the good sumo, even when he's a little fairly scrappy. And, like, if anything, it's good that you can see some rough edges on Meisei because it means he's only going to get better. He's not plateauing. He's not reaching the peak and then falling back down. Right.
If he can hone in and kind of take care of some of the sloppiness, he will reach a higher level. And, I mean, we have to talk about his defeat of Terunofuji.
That, it was one of those moments, it reminded me of when Tochinoshin beat, may not have been for the title, but when he beat Kakuryu, and it was that belt match. And, like, you can see on his face is like that he would lose to nobody that day.
Right.
Meisei had that feel.
I believe that was the Ozeki run.
It was on his way up. He had that energy. Meisei was, like, on that one day, he was the perfect sumo wrestler. He had the plan, he had the execution. None of his, like, flaily, like, slipping on the dohyo footwork, none of his getting staggered around. It was just perfectly honed Meisei. Grabs a belt, throws him out with vigor.
Yeah. That was not a fluky win. That was everything went right, like you said, and he executed the plan, and he showed Terunofuji yet another way he needs to build his defenses, which means Terunofuji will probably just be stronger next time. Every time he loses, he seems to, like, tighten it up. But it was very exciting to see Meisei do that. I always felt that he had the potential to do better things, and he's working on it. I mean, like, you know, I worry that he could have some Daieisho in him, though, that, you know, he's got to fix those things sooner than later. He's in the highest spot you can be in before being Ozeki, and you either start putting together an Ozeki run or eventually you drop out. So November is critical for him.
And lots to look forward to. Meisei is...
Yes.
So, again, like, what's also nice is that, like, you have the Shodai, Takakeisho, and now we have Meisei we can go in with optimism.
Right, let's see some new blood.
Let's see some new freshness. So, we'll be really quick about this one. Sekiwaki 2 East, Asanoyama 0-0 and 15. Didn't fight, won't be fighting for a while. What, 2 years until he's back up?
I think so.
So, November, he'll be somewhere mid-low. And then after that, come January,
he won't be on our list.
He will not be one of the 42 people we have opinions about.
I do wonder, as a side, if losing Asanoyama is sort of what threw Shodai off a little bit.
There's some of that in there. It's that goes to the lack of rivalry, the lack of people to, you know, temper steel with.
Because Shodai and Takakeisho didn't even fight this tournament. Did they?
No.
Yeah, I don't think they did.
That was some of the... There's some...
Sketchy.
The decisions on some of the matches later on were a little odd. So the Ozeki didn't fight each other. And... When we get lower on, like, there were some instances of people really, really low down, fighting people really, really high up, and it didn't always make sense. But regardless... No Ozeki versus Ozeki. They both fought the Yokozuna, which is at minimum what you need to do.
Right, so it did put Shodai in sort of this weird isolation bubble. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not even fighting your fellow Ozeki who's, you know, trying not to go Kadoban, or, you know, lose his spot. So, yeah. That small note about Asanoyama.
All right, so, next up, we're going to go into tragedy. We had happiness, now we have some sadness. We'd mentioned him earlier. Takayasu, Kamasubi 1 East 4, 8, and 3. So, this is sort of like it's like a multi-punch combo into our collective fandom for Takayasu. Because he had some big losses early on. I mean, he started at 0-4, but some of the losses that he lost were very decisive and very un-Takayasu. Chiyoshoma pulled a fast one on him, which is a little funny, but also a little scary.
Right, because he should know.
He should know. Like, he shouldn't be fooling Takayasu with that. So there was already struggles. I think I saw some tape on his lower belly at some point, so maybe the back issues are back a little bit. And so already struggling, already not really fighting the way he needs to, and he's just, like, there's a bit of a desperation scrape.
What does the square mean?
He got 2 default wins.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So I mean, that's also, yeah. So only 2 of the wins this tournament were of his own volition. Now,
Yikes.
Would he have beaten Kotonowaka by himself? Maybe. Hoshoryu, much less maybe.
Yeah, Hoshoryu was hot at the time.
Yeah, but then Terunofuji throws him out so hard that he bruises his ass. Which it's just like it's funny. You're just like, oh no, but Takayasu.
I mean, it was like watching the slow walk.
It's another slow walk. He's just collecting all this tragedy. It's another bitter pill for him to swallow. And so basically being 4-11 is going to push him down. Right. Which, sort of good news for him.
I mean, it gives him a chance to build back up, but the time is ticking, and I don't think he's going to make it back to Ozeki. There was a point where I thought he would. I just don't think it's possible.
This is starting to close that door. So Takayasu was making that run to get back up. I think from now, his goal should be Yusho. Just get that cup, and then that's your victory.
Right. Take that with you into retirement.
Yeah. So we've always wanted to give him a cup, but in any case, it's a rough time for him.
Yeah. I hope he recovers quick. I hope it wasn't.
Yeah, well,
it was a rough landing.
I don't think he broke bones. Like, it was like tissue bruising, so that's usually just
right. And if he already had the back issues, it's like this is done.
We're done here. Yeah.
I'm not Ikioi. I'm not gonna go up and have every limb tore from my body.
So the last Konosuba was almost a disaster, but
so close to a disaster.
Very close to a disaster, but Ichinojo pulls it out in the end. Very rocky start, likely due to being sick, not having proper training and lead up. Lots of concerns. He was doing his off switch pulling. But like starting the second week, the fire came back out, the aggressiveness came back out. For me, the big win was an Iron Man match that he not only did he win, but it was against Mr. Iron Man himself, Takarafuji.
The one who has coined the term.
He created it. And twice on that fight, he was driven back and he resisted at the edge. While winded in the middle of a 3-minute match, somebody who never resists at the edge twice and then drives.
Right, it'd be one thing if he just resisted, but to actually end up winning that with the guy who can outlast everybody, it shows a very different side of Ichinojo than we've seen in years. I don't know what he was like pre-2018, but I've always seen the Snorlax / angry Ichinojo, and he's never put in that much of an effort and never had the endurance to hang in like that. So, yeah, I give him credit. That was a hard-fought 8-7.
Hard-fought 8-7 with a handicap. So, of the people that have handicaps, like these 3 people, Takayasu, Ichinojo, Hoshoryu, all 3 of them had some sort of a thing going on. He plowed through it. So, keep an eye on Ichinojo. Probably our strongest Sanyaku candidate for Ozeki at the moment.
Agreed.
Now, we'll see what happens with the young kids coming up, but the Megashiras it's a grab bag of very interesting things.
Yeah.
Very interesting
That's
things.
a good way of putting it.
I was just, that week 2 Ichinojo was everything that I hoped that he would do, and the fact that he could turn it around speaks to an inner strength. Like that mental fortitude that he's been building on since we've been noticing that he's been aggressive again.
Yeah, and really to make that inner self come out, especially someone who has a history of not, that's really you went on a journey and you discovered something about yourself.
He discovered something. This is new, exciting Ichinojo taking in that energy.
And he's where he should be. A guy that big and that talented should be at the top. Maybe not Yokozuna. I don't know that he's that good. But he should. I mean, I see him very similarly to Tochinoshin. Tochinoshin's way more impressive. But those two had that epic rivalry for so long. You would have assumed Ichinojo would have ascended to at least that high up prior to now.
It seems that at least now, he seems on his way up.
Yes.
So, into Megashira 1, we're going to talk about the young gun.
There's a lot to say about him.
So, 5-8-2, Hoshoryu, Megashiro 1 East. Interesting that he gets this out of nowhere tonsillitis. So if he won the 3 matches that he was benched for tonsillitis, that would have been 8-7. So keep that in mind.
Yep.
Does the Ipponzioi against Wakatakakage. So here's the thing. He could have been 1-14. And everybody would have been like, did you see that thing he did?
Yeah, you wouldn't have cared about the record.
He did a judo throw of a guy who was 250 pounds.
And he executed it, like, perfectly. Like, if you were in a training exercise.
Yes.
Nobody does that in the top division. Like, you might see that more frequently in the lower divisions. Even though I don't even think that's necessarily the case. I think they said it hadn't been seen in the upper division in, like, 20 years or something like that.
I believe it. It's not easy to do. He's got that technique. He's got the risk to go after it. And promising for the future, he's got his wins over Shodai, Wakatakakage, and Ichinojo, who are all up top in that game group. He seems
Shodai, you said Shodai?
He seems to have Shodai's number. Him and Ichinojo put on absolutely
a battle.
darling fights every time. I once again do a great fight, and then they call a redo so we get 2 out of 1 day. Which I feel like I kind of feel bad for Ichinojo on those. But hey, it's just as taxing on Hoshoryu. So, like in general, the scheme of things, you get knocked down a peg when you get this high. So what's good to see is that Hoshoryu's still going for it. Also, pulling crazy stuff. And my last point is, he's in the trajectory. So you go up, you learn a lot, you get knocked down a peg, and then you come charging back.
Right. He's not going to go down, well, he will go down decently far, but he should have no trouble just bouncing right. He should be able to leapfrog. If his, the tonsillitis seemed like it knocked a little stuffing out of him. I don't know if it was just when you're in the middle of a tournament, it's really hard to build back up that momentum if you take a day off. But I'm assuming that's a short-term effect and it's not a long-term effect. I will say this, though. Interesting when he fought Takakeisho and they called him back to do the bow again. I've never seen that before. And I had seen... You can see the Asashoryu in him now.
It's a little bit.
I'm not saying that to say, oh, you're just like your uncle, but he's got a little bit of a fieriness to him, like... So angry. He's so angry. And he's trying to contain it. He's like a volcano about to erupt after every match, whether he wins or loses. That's exciting.
There's a burning fire in Hoshoryu, and what's going to be interesting for him is give him 2 years, top division, to temper that flame.
Yes.
Oh boy, he's going to be doing these throws to a Yokozuna or as a Yokozuna.
Could you imagine that?
He's so young. He's a child.
He is. He's, no longer are we talking about baby Takakeisho. It's Hoshoryu who's the young guy now. So he's got to stay healthy, too. No injuries, my God. That's the thing. But he looks like he's in good shape. Like, not too heavy, but not too small like Enho. It's not that easy to throw him around. And I think that little edge that he has will also help him stay in the game. Yeah,
very... Maybe not the results that Hoshoryu wanted, but the performance he wanted.
It should matter. Who knows? Who knows if he's like beating himself up or if he feels a little bit of pride at least knowing that he...
Oh, okay. This is... that highlight reel. Like, whenever he feels bad, just play that slow-mo of Wakatakakage flying over his shoulder.
I mean, that's the rivalry of the future right there.
Uh-huh. Oh, that'll be good.
Well, what I would like to see, as much as I'm rooting for Hoshoryu, because I'm rooting for everybody in a way, I want to see if Wakatakakage repays him with something of his own.
November's knocking.
Because Waka can do some stuff, too. And it would be amazing if he's like, hey, I got something for you, buddy. The possibilities.
November's going to be a banger.
It is.
So next up, we have Megashiro 1 West Takanosho 7-8. I'd written my notes as if he was going to get 8 and 7.
Oh, no.
But a lot of what I said is true, is that Takanosho is showing the consistency, if not the spark. Sort of the defensive sumo he has, the way that he's got the power, knows how to stay balanced, isn't flaily, is like the calm, stoic. That's good to see, but it's like, but then he's 7 and 8. So it's like he still has a little bit of work to do.
Right. He's got to go up a notch in terms of either increase his power, increase his, like, it might be on the tachi-ai. I think he's getting beat on the tachi-ai. I think he needs to either really work on a powerful tachi-ai or a shifty tachi-ai. You know, you could shift to the left kind of thing. And or he just needs a little bit, maybe he needs to do some weightlifting or something like that. I mean, Terunofuji is a weightlifter. There's a reason why that dude is where he is. And Takanosho has the sort of frame where if he could get that increased power, he could easily bulk up a little bit. And just, you saw with Takakeisho when he gained the weight, even though it was very bad for him. Look at how much power he had gained in that one tournament. Takanosho could gain some more power, and I think it makes a difference between a 7 and an 8 and an 8 and 7.
It might.
Because you're right about how balanced he is. A lot of these pusher-thruster guys are all over the place.
All over the place. They get knocked around. They're caught off balance. They're driven out. He still has some of that too, but...
Not as bad.
You can tell he's better at defensive. So when Kiribayama was on his tear, Takanosho was the first guy who beat Kiribayama when Kiribayama had the advantage. Mm-hmm. So when he fought Daieisho, well, we'll get to Kiribayama and Daieisho. That was just a fun fight. Daieisho had the power. He was pushing forward. When he fought against Terunofuji is God. But against Takanosho, Kiribayama, he had the belt. Takanosho broke the belt grip and then retaliated. So that's the kind of technique that Takanosho has. I'm inclined to agree with you that a little bit more power, maybe a little bit more bulk, a little bit tachi-ai work. I don't know. At this point, it's minor fine-tuning, but that is the difference between the 7 and the 8 and the 8 and 7, like you were mentioning. It's just so close.
Exactly.
So close.
Because we saw him in Sanyaku, and I do think he was fighting better then. I wasn't paying as much attention to whether it was the tachi-ai or not. I would assume his strength is very similar to what it was then, so it could be something like the tachi-ai. But we'll have to see. I mean, 7 and 8 is enough to keep him relatively where he wants to be.
He'll be in the conversation. He'll be fighting similar matches to if he had the 8 and 7. It's just that he's not going to have the progress. He's not going to have the momentum going into the next.
Right, you've got 2 steps backwards right now when you wanted to take the step forward. Uh-huh.
So, I'll be real quick about this. I don't want to cry.
Pain.
Hokutofuji, my dear child, Mega Sierra 2 East 2, 3, and 10, out with a knee injury. I am very sad. He started out beating Takakeisho and Mitakeumi.
And it looked like it was going to be a good tournament.
I tell you, if Hokutofuji's 2-0, I'm sending you a message. Hokutofuji Yusho. I'm like, it's now's the time. It feels different this time than all the other times I send you a message and he goes 0-6 after the first 3 days. But I'm already looking forward to Hokutofuji lower down for the same reasons that I'm hopeful for Takayasu, Hoshoryu, and Kotonowaka going down, and that you're not worried about them. Takayasu maybe a little bit, but Hokutofuji, Megashira 9,
he'll take care of business.
What's Shimanoumi gonna do to him? What's poor Kotoeko gonna do to him?
Oh, he's gonna get launched.
You know, Chiyomaru, I love Chiyomaru, you're gone.
Yeah.
So this is my takeaway for Hokutofuji is that he's just gonna come roaring back.
Right, maybe he winds up with a 11-4 record or something.
This is the long con to get a special prize.
Special prize is good.
Special prize.
It's $20,000. I mean,
hey.
Not gonna get upset about that. Yeah, I will say that it just didn't feel the same because Hokutofuji's never injured.
That's what really threw me off. He's durable.
Yeah, and so every time I'm watching the matches, I felt like something is missing. I'm like, where's the Takarafuji, where's the Hokutofuji match? Because he's just always been a staple, and his battles are always brutal. And it just felt a little off. Maybe that was part of the aura we were talking about. And
also what you were mentioning about, like, a lot of people got injured. A lot of people hobbled together a little bit. There's a little bit of light.
Strange.
A little bit of light and dark.
Yeah.
A little bit. But, Hokutofuji, I can't wait for November to see you again. I hope your knee's better. And this isn't some... like,
serious knee thing.
Serious thing which will drive me to depression.
I know. It's like, we don't need this.
Don't need this. So... and the opposite of depression, Kiribayama, Megashira 2S, 9-6, probably one of his best performances at this level.
Which we thought would come. So it's good to see that we weren't totally off base, but he just seemed like he had the goods to really put up a good performance.
Yeah, so I always talk about with Hokutofuji, again, here's a pairing on Megashira 2, which is nice.
Yes.
So Hokutofuji, his problem has always been that he'll beat anybody below him and then lose to people above him. So that he has trouble breaking that ceiling. Kiribayama has the reverse problems. He beats everybody above him, except Terunofuji, and then gets losses to people below him. So, of note is that some of his losses were against the Yusho Chasers, Okinoumi, Endo, and... so it's not all... there's some momentum. Maybe Kiribayama fading a little bit on the second week. But here is a guy who's being trained to beat the best of the best.
Right.
And is focused on the people above him.
So naturally, that's where all of his effort goes in. And then, I don't know that it's mistakes, but you take those lower ranked opponents for granted. Either
takes them for granted or just doesn't train, doesn't focus on any specific things he'd need for people on those individual days. Maybe he's sort of like, got his mind thinking about how he's going to throw Shodai, and so he loses sight of his match against Takanosho. It's sort of something going on. But, again, he was on fire.
He was looking like he would be, like, maybe in the Yusho talk. And then... his weaknesses started to show effectively.
A little bit. If you get him on a good pushing thrusting, it seems to be what he needs to work on right now. But this is, for Kiribayama, this was his chance to prove he belongs up here. He had fallen down to the 6s, the 7s, the 8s, so now he's 2, and he goes 9-6. So he may be...
Is there room for him in Sanyaku? Yes.
He's going to be Sanyaku.
Yes, because Takayasu will drop out.
Takayasu will drop out. This is what's also really interesting about all this is the only other person that would be in range would be Wakatakakage, half step lower. So where this is going to be interesting and what we're going to talk about in November is, do you give Kiribayama with the 9 and 6.5 rung higher the empty Sanyaku spot because he beat all these other upper rankers, or do you give it to Wakatakakage, who has the same rank and who beat Kiribayama when they fought each other?
Oh, yeah, that's true. That could be the tiebreaker.
Or
what they could... I don't think they can do this. Can you go up? Yeah, there's nobody else to promote into that
No, it's
spot.
those two.
So it's between those two. They're going to have to figure it out.
You could possibly give it to Daieisho, but he's Megashira 4.
Could you imagine if they did that?
That'd be hilarious.
I never put anything past them, to be honest.
Wakatakakage and Daieisho, they're both previous Sanyakus, and they have competitive scores.
I'm guessing they'd give it to Kiribayama.
I'm thinking they give it to Kiribayama. I'm thinking that Kiribayama's who has beaten both Ozeki, who, again, the fact that Kiribayama beat the entirety of Sanyaku, the only loss he had that was higher than Kamasubi was against Terunofuji.
That's everybody except for 2 guys.
So is it going to be quality of opponents, or is it going to be in their head-to-head?
Right. I mean, if they didn't have that spot to fill, I could see them being sketchy and moving Wakatakakage and Kiribayama to Megashira 1.
Maybe. That would be the logjam problem. But
yeah, that's...
This is something that I'm going to be paying close attention to when the Banzuke comes out at the end of October.
Yeah, the Banzuke is actually going to be one of those ones where you anticipate because you're going to say, what are they going to do? Like, sometimes you know what's going to happen because of how the results are. In this one, they could make a couple of choices.
Could make some choices. But, Kiribayama, more of that, and we're talking about him about Ozeki. More of that. Same with Hoshoryu. More of that. Much less lossing.
Yeah, he's gonna need a little time.
So, Wakatakakage next. Megashira 3 East 9 and 6 we just mentioned. He made his rebound. This was the recovery I was hoping for. I felt really uneasy that 5 of his 9 wins were the last 5 days. Definitely, I was closely,
it wasn't looking good for him.
It wasn't looking good. It was looking a little... and he pulls it together at the end. Almost all of his losses were in the upper ranks, which is worth noting, is that this is where Kiribayama has the better quality wins. But for somebody who got knocked out, he was 5-10. He got cracked right out of the Sanyaku, and then he puts together a performance like this saying, I'm coming back. You can't keep me down. I've learned, I've recovered, I've regrouped. So this is what I want to see Hoshoryu do in November.
Right. He's going to have to take that
Take
spot.
the loss, take what you learned, and then say, there's no keeping me down. I'm ready for this. So, I see Wakatakakage front and center 1 East if he doesn't pole vault over Kiribayama. And Wakatakakage showing the power. Day 1, he just knocked Takayasu over. Takayasu did that weird collapse thing that was like, ooh, what's going on here? So how he beat Kiribayama is very interesting. So they were locked up, and this is sumo sense that we knew. Like you would mention in the past that like Wakatakakage, like he has the mind of a veteran in a way. So they're doing the lockup, and Wakatakakage is waiting for Kiribayama to change the grip. The Makekai. Somebody out there is yelling at me. I'm sorry. But the instant Kiribayama releases the grip to go back in, Wakatakakage charges and wins.
Right,
that
he knew it.
Instant. He knew it. He anticipated it. He was waiting for that moment. And
that's that killer instinct.
He also survived an Ichinojo lean-off. So he's got the power. He's got the endurance. He's got the timing. He's got the technique. It seems like he's getting a little bit more bulk. I mean, Shodai did...
I was going to say, he looked stronger in this tournament. I definitely feel like he hit the weights or something like that, because my only concern for him was he's the smaller guy, so that does create some issues, but he now had the mind of a veteran, and now he had some of the sumo of a bigger guy. So I still think the possibilities with him, barring one of these horrible injuries that everybody gets, knock on wood, is that he does have the ability to be a Hakuho. When you look at things like how Hakuho is a smaller guy for a Yokozuna, but he's powerful. And I just think Wakatakakage has the ability, and we're just getting glimpses of it right now.
Yeah. So it's a slow build, but you can see the build. Not discouraged, not dropping down, not staggering, coming back. So with Ichinojo as probably the best current Sanyaku candidate to be Ozeki, I think I still agree with you that Wakatakakage is the next Ozeki. Just
when you look at pure potential.
Pure potential, raw potential. Hoshoryu is about 2 steps behind. Would be interesting if Hoshoryu gets past him, but
he is younger, isn't he?
A little younger, yeah.
Yeah, so he's sort of right on track. You know, there's very few young guys who become Yokozuna unless you're Hakuho. He was sort of like, he's a once-in-a-lifetime talent you're never going to see again. I mean, I think he was 21 when he became Yokozuna, and he just never stopped being the man.
He never stopped being the man.
Most guys, that's not going to be them, so you sort of look at the potential to be the man. And so Hoshoryu is right on track, and it appears that Wakatakakage is right on track. It's just a matter of, well, you just get that little extra to... Because you're seeing it with Terunofuji. There is a little bit of a, got to do it now. Even if you're a young guy, because you just don't know how long your career's going to be. So I hope that both of them get that spark where we start seeing like high caliber Ozeki that are young and hungry and want to be next Yokozuna. Because after Terunofuji, I don't know who could possibly do it.
Nobody right now is a candidate.
Not even close. You're looking like 5-10 years before we might see another Yokozuna at this point.
Hopefully not that long, but it can be that long.
Right, which is why I'm kind of putting a lot of hope in Wakatakakage. So there's some wishful thinking, but it's based upon some real solid potential.
I agree with that. So, Kotonowaka, Megashira 3 West, 3, 7, and 5. So if Hokutofuji's the big sad, Kotonowaka is the smaller sad. I was really looking forward to him doing things, and then he gets another knee injury. Nobody's knees are safe. I didn't say this. Takanosho had a knee scare that thankfully.
Yes, I forgot all about that.
Averted.
He ends up going in the next day, and you see that there's going to be, a withdrawal, and I think that it's going to be him.
Yeah, but it was him.
It was the Hokutofuji.
It was Hokutofuji.
It could have been both of them with what happened.
Was that the day? Yeah, that was the day that we had back-to-back...
Takayasu and then Hokutofuji.
Yeah, or Hoshoryu went out with tonsillitis, and then Hokutofuji went out with the knee. That was the first time I think I've seen a back-to-back Kyujo.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
I was like, oh no, rough times. But with Kotonowaka, he was already sort of taking his lumps.
Is this his second injury?
I don't know how serious the injury is, but okay. I mean, he has been injured before. I feel like the knee injury is more of a nail in the coffin than it was like a sapping of potential. His fight against Shodai was great because he beat Shodai at his own game. Mm-hmm. That was when I saw Shodai lose that one. My first thought was, "Ooh, I hope this doesn't mess up Shodai," because that was really nice.
And then you think for a second, you dare to hope and dream that Kotonowaka's going to go on a tear now after that Shodai win. And then he loses the very next match, and then he has to withdraw.
And then he got the knee out. So it's a little rough. So just like Hoshoryu, you go up and then you go back down. So with Hoshoryu, you can see that fire burning from a mile away. With Kotonowaka, it's a little more, oh boy, I don't know what's going to happen in November with you.
Yeah, he's a huge question mark because A, we don't know how serious the injury is, but B, he didn't seem that certain anyway. So, an injury for some people is like a motivator to get back. An injury for others is like, oh, this is over. I can't do this.
It's a bigger hill to climb.
And he seems like one of the bigger hills to climb.
Yeah. So, I'm going to have a very, very cautious eye on him in November and just hope that he rebounds and doesn't lose anything in what got him up here.
Exactly.
So, next, Tamawashi, Megashira 4E, 6 and 9. This is just what happens when you fly too close to the sun, sort of.
Yeah.
People were able to contend with his power, and that's Tamawashi's bread and butter these days, which is not a problem. So he did get some nice wins. He came very close to getting Terunofuji over.
It was a great strategy.
It was smashed him off the Tachi-ai, full on Tamawashi Nodoa signature attack. Somehow Terunofuji pulls that off. But those first 3 seconds. It
looked like it was going to be a dominating win.
I would slam the table. I'm like, no way is going to happen. And then the immortality paradox hits. Terunofuji recovers and throws him out. I was like, oh my god.
You're like, of course. What am I thinking? Yeah. Which is what made the Meisei loss all the more exciting.
Oh my goodness.
But that's aside.
So, fought game to the last day, and this was your note, that he was 6-8 going into the last day, and he was fighting Onosho. Onosho, if he wins, he gets a special prize. So in the back of your head, you may be thinking, I don't need to win this. He's just like, I'm going to just smash this kid.
Yeah, I felt the sort of cutthroat, nah, you're going to have to really earn this prize, kid. And there was something very appealing about that, because it just felt like Tamawashi is not ready to phone it in. Uh-huh. I think he's the oldest guy left.
He's the oldest guy.
That will change if Shohozan comes up again. but currently he is the oldest guy in the upper division. And he's just showing you, like, you kids got to work hard.
He is, like, that is down but not out. You can beat me, but you can't make me go away.
I wonder if the Fountain of Youth are in the cookies that he bakes.
I'm pretty sure he is reaching immortal golem.
He really is.
Rate.
I mean, he's right behind Hakuho, I think, for most tournaments represented. Or he really is like the Cal Ripken of sumo.
He is. Yeah, I'm not worried the least about the 6 and 9.
No, he'll drop a little bit. He'll go into mid card, and then he'll do his thing, and he'll just keep going up and down until he decides he's done.
Until he decides he's done. It'll be another 20 years or so.
Yeah, probably.
He'll be 65. He'll be like, "Come on, kids."
If he was Ikioi, not hurt, like he has that same fire as Ikioi. Like, I'm not going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere. Can't make a move. He'll be fighting his own grandkids.
Exactly. He'll have to retire from being an Oyakata because he'll be past 60. It's like, oh man, I never got to train anybody.
He'll skip right past being a coach.
It's like, I guess I gotta just like go home now.
Bless you, Tamawashi. You're just so much fun. Next up, Daieisho, Megashiro 4 West, 10 and 5. Oh, the Dark Horse is back. Oh, this is so pleasing.
And you know, at first I wasn't sure, even though he wasn't necessarily giving me any trouble vibes. It's that Daieisho does everything in a quiet way to the point where, unless he's like in the Yusho title, I'm always a little surprised where he ends up at the end.
It did seem that sort of his latest knockdown was a bit more permanent. I had sort of like felt the hope die a little bit for me. But he had some of those wins, what I call the Yusho Daieisho wins. First ever Kinboshi goes to him. I really think you should give the Kinboshi to Daieisho's elbow guard. But,
I know, right? Flying.
What was great is that Terunofuji was just tearing the bandages off Daieisho.
Like, you're not going to beat me. No. And Daieisho's like, I don't care.
It was this weird, like, almost comedic act.
Either comedic or it felt like a street brawl where it's like, let's just take everything off. Yeah. Things are flying in the air and they're grabbing at each other and it's like, whoa.
Yeah, on that match, like off the Tachiya, he gets the Sagari, the hanging belt thing rather than the belt. Like if Terunofuji got the belt on Daieisho,
that would have been done.
It would have been done in 2 seconds. So he tears that off, grabs at his bandages, pulls the bandages off, going backwards, grabs the elbow brace, goes flying, and then he's just out of things to grab. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was probably one of the more strange losses that he's had.
So weird.
That wasn't like the perfect plan was executed. That was like all hell broke loose. Oh, it was so great though. This is one of the things I like about Daieisho is that there's always a potential for something really scrappy or really interesting to happen in his matches because he always brings 110%.
Brings 100, and this is also part of what made me feel so happy to see Daieisho do the win. So I mentioned before about Kiribayama. So with the Kiribayama fight, it is all aggression. He's slapping, he's going. So he one hand near the end, he does a one hand, he just pushes him down. And the force of him pushing him down with one hand causes Kiribayama to spin like a top. Like, there is so much force to push somebody down. And then they have so much more on top of that the guy falls down. Kiribayama, 300 pounds, by the way. If I don't know the number, but heavy. And then spins. Like you threw a kid to the ground. Like you threw a doll. So that's the kind of force Daieisho has in one arm. And so I saw that, I'm like, I think he's back.
It's funny how there was a lot of like cartoon like things that happened to people in this tournament.
Bizarre, almost nonsensical.
Like if you took the tournament out of context and only took the clips of the really weird stuff like that happening, you could turn it into one of those comedic sumo specials and you wouldn't know that it was actually a serious tournament.
15 days of real sumo where we're going to take this and this and this.
I kind of want to do it.
Take the Ipponzioi, take the throwing the guard, take every single win Chiyoshoma got.
The Gyoji getting bowled over.
Bowled over.
The same one that's always falling off.
Oh, goodness.
You could do a compilation of just him falling off
falling off the dohyo.
But it would be funny to be like, this is what sumo is, and only show the clips from this tournament where the wild stuff happened.
This was a wild time. This was the sweet and the sour.
Yes, it was.
Right. Good to see Daieisho. Definitely going to be front and center. And, like, he's got that crosshair
He's
back.
challenging to go back in a Sanyaku.
Challenging to go back up, so that's going to be another interesting aspect of November. Unfortunately, somebody not challenging. Chiyoshoma, Megashira East, 5 East, 5 and 10. So, for me, this whole time I've been, like, riding this roller coaster of fun that Chiyoshoma
because he just kept going up.
Kept going up. So I feel like this tournament is the one where the guy who snuck in to the party
finally gets kicked out.
Finally got the bouncers called out. Everyone's like, wait a minute, what's Chiyoshoma doing up here? No. Get the door guys out here. We can't have him in here. He's making us all look bad.
Exactly. It's more of, we talked so much about reality in the last tournament. It's really the reality that, his skill level didn't seem like he should get to where he's at, but his skill level got him to where he's at. And so just eventually the hammer was going to come down. And that's all that really happened.
So it was weird because he had simultaneously not as good and better sumo, depending on the days.
Right.
He was really flaily through the first half. It seemed that either...
and that's what killed him.
Yeah, because he had it. It was, what he was, 1 and 9, 1 and 8. So basically the rest of the tournament for him was just hanging out. Which is fine, but he had some serious balance or accuracy issues that it seemed that either when he was no longer nervous or he didn't care or just had settled down through the natural course of going through the tournament, then he did some, like, throwing people kind of sumo, which is not in his bag of tricks.
Well, it's kind of like that Takakeisho thing where, he just grabs Terunofuji's belt because he's like, oh, let's try something. When you got nothing to lose, it's like, well, let me try some stuff because it's a dynamic situation. You're going to be fighting again. So why not get, like, the real-world, real-time training that you're not going to get anywhere else but a tournament and try some things?
He tried some things. Also, of note, he always has trouble with the other mischief makers. But he beats Terutsuyoshi this tournament. So that's a moral victory for him. Right.
It's, like, very similar styles. Like, which fox is going to win this match?
He usually gets out-foxed by the other foxes, but... Terutsuyoshi has his own problems, but one of his problems is that Chiyoshoma was top fox.
Right, exactly. And
top fox!
He showed him.
But, yeah, my biggest upset is that they didn't give him to Terunofuji.
I know, right? Come on.
I wanted Chiyoshoma to do the biggest, most blatant henka in the history of sumo and have Terunofuji...
catch him in midair.
Full rage! Pure Yokozuna anger... like, throw him into the second deck. I wanted it. That is, as soon as I saw 5 East, I'm like, it might happen. Didn't happen.
No, and it could have happened. They had some interesting choices. And they didn't let him have him. But I will say, what made me laugh, it's just a side point, is on the final day he henkas, and Murray Johnson's like, he said he wasn't going to hank anymore. I'm like, when did he say he wasn't going to hank anymore? And if he did, why did you believe him? That's his thing.
He said he was done with hankies. He's done 2 hankers.
It's like, Murray, come on.
Come on, Murray.
I love Murray, but come on, Murray. But Chiyoshoma's the only one I give a pass on the hanka. Excuse me. Because it's what he does. If you don't expect a hanka from Chiyoshoma, that's on you. Like, it's good to have these guys who throw you off a little bit. I don't like when the charging in guys, or especially if you're high ranked, pull that, because it's like, yeah, that's totally cheap. They don't expect you to do that. But Chiyoshoma, you expect him to do it, so prepare. Prepare as if he's going to do it.
So 5 and 10, not going to knock him down too far. Sort of, it's a little bittersweet. It's just like the fun train is
starting to...
yeah, we hit our stop, but... yeah. Maybe he'll turn around and get a 10 and 5 next tournament. You never know.
You never know.
Don't take your eyes off him.
November might be a wild tournament.
It might be.
So it's always the last tournament of the year.
It's looking to be a bit of a powder keg.
Well, I remember when it was like just March was the Stormy Basho. Every Basho is the Stormy Basho now.
Just in the middle of a hurricane. So, next up, Takarafuji, Megashira 5 West, 8 and 7, just barely. As Takarafuji is, as Takarafuji does. It's just durable, can't move him, calm, patient.
He can hang in with you for 3 to 5 minutes.
So it is... His greatest strength, I think, is starting to turn into his weakness. And so he outlasts Ura and Tobizaru. Like, it was great, because it was... When he fought Tobizaru was, like, heaving. He's like, oh, God, what do I do next? He tries like things. Takarafuji's just like, I'm just going to throw you now.
And it's like, that's nice.
That's okay. Cool. Thanks for showing up today. Now, against the hunk... Now, again, this is sort of the people who were after the Yusho race. Like, there was a little bit more hunger in their eyes and in their need. But he got into these kinds of stalemates with Okinoumi, and Okinoumi won what was essentially an even match because he wanted it more, it felt like.
It's a very interesting point that you bring up, because I was thinking to myself while I was watching him, he's lost a little bit of desire. And I don't know if that's simply age, like he feels more tired, so like it gets harder with age to say, do I really want to like do this again? It just inherently becomes harder. It's not just the attitude thing. And he's got a new son at home, and he's just getting into a new stage of life. I am starting to sense the mental slowdown of Takarafuji. And I don't know if that means automatically we get a retirement out of nowhere, because I think his skills are keeping him in. They are.
It's more of he's such a strong defensive specialist. He's durable. Like, he's all of these like resistances. But some like the offense seems to be weaning off a little bit. Now, that being said, his fight against Tochinoshin was not any of that.
Right, and he wanted that Kachikoshi.
He wanted that Kachikoshi. I do feel like he'll be around for as long as Terunofuji is.
Yeah.
So he's not gonna hang it up while he's carrying swords.
No, that's a very good point.
But there's sometimes that he's just defense. And
we could get a twofer, like when Terunofuji's done, Takarafuji's like, yeah, man, I'm out.
That would suck.
But I could see that.
Maybe. But it's still an 8 and 7. I'll say that 8 and 7 at Megashira 5.
Yeah, I mean he's
climbing.
He's climbing right back up after he had that nice little return to Sanyaku, and then he just tumbled down, and it was like, oh, what are we gonna get? And he is building himself back up. I do think it probably has a lot to do with Terunofuji.
Oh yeah,
like just being around him,
inheriting the Yokozuna energy. It seems Takarafuji is like in tune with that. We'll see how high he gets. Now, what's also going to be interesting is Takarafuji gets high enough up, he could start playing foil for his boy. Which
is something that I think you could sort of dream of if you're really...
Yeah. You get a win. Let's see. I guess he didn't fight anybody in the second half that really had a hand in it.
I gotta say this, though. It's, once again, sorry, we're going back to Terunofuji, but what does Terunofuji have to prove at this point? I mean... the last thing he has to prove is to beat Hakuho.
That's it. There's two things he needs to do. One is he needs to beat Hakuho, and two, he needs to get a sponsorship for trophy cabinets. And start filling them. Like you had mentioned, he's like, this is his window, so he is just going to crush everybody as often as he can, every single day, until he's done.
Yep.
So he's going to just have like a whole room in his house that's just all of his Yushos. And so I'm seeing he's just going in there and he's just like, I'm going to build 10 shelves and they're all going to be full.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's how I'm envisioning Terunofuji after seeing him fight. And then I see Takarafuji saying,
"Let me help you with this.
If he's filling his trophy cabinet, I'm here."
Right. I want the assist.
He wants the assist. And feeding the energy. Next up, Darling Ura, Megashira 67 and 8. there always seems to be, like, there's somebody with the target on their back. Last tournament, it was Wakatakakage. Everybody's just like, this guy needs to get knocked down a peg. Everybody was scared of Ura.
They were.
No one fought him normal unless they lost.
Yes.
Everybody was keeping him at arm's length. They're like, he's going to go low, he's going to, like, do a weird backflip, and I'm going to look stupid on TV. So they pushed him down, knocked him over.
That is how it felt. Like, no one wanted... It wasn't about just, I don't want to lose. It's, I don't want to be on the highlight reel.
They don't want it. So, poor Daieisho, one of his 5 losses. So, by the way, this was spectacular to watch. Like, as a Daieisho fan, or do this again to him, I love it. Gets behind him, lifts him over his body, and, like, launches him out. Oh, gosh. Only Ura seems to be the kind of person who has the insanity. Like, it's sort of like...
To try
that. There were a couple times he did try some other weirdness, too, and he's just like, it didn't work out, or he got cracked, or he got red. I think he tried to do something to Okinoumi, and Okinoumi was just like, no.
Well, we have to talk about the epic match with Terunofuji.
Yes.
That was the craziest thing I've ever seen. When he pulled that Matrix-style back bend at the end, you're looking at Terunofuji's face, and he's just like,
what?
Just die already!
So, Terunofuji, like, he does the throw, and it looks like he's just, I'm done here. And then, like, he just looks down. There's somebody pulling on his belt. It's Ura spinning backwards with a reverse grip on the belt. And he looks down and he's like, what is this? Get off of me! No! After what was an incredible fight.
Well,
so
I don't know if you noticed, Ura was actually trying to climb up him.
Yeah. He was doing foot shuffles, as in if Terunofuji didn't put him down, he would have stood back up and kept biting.
Could you imagine if it was anybody other than Terunofuji? Because Terunofuji, the thing he has, besides all the other things, is he has the killer instinct. If he had pulled that move on one of these other guys who, like, phones it in, he probably would have climbed up him and, like...
I never got him from behind!
He would have been done, like, a DDT or something. I understand now why people couldn't wait for Ura to come back up. I never got to see him. As a matter of fact, it looks like his injury came from Takakeisho, which is like...
It was a bit of a... Yeah. So, what is nice is he fought his way back to 7 and 8. So it looked like, particularly early on, it didn't
like he was going to be real low.
Yeah, like it looked like he was going to be like double-digit losses. So he gets that back in. What's good news for us is he's not going to fall down that far down.
So we're going to still get to see good matches.
So he's going to be in higher quality matches, and it also means that come January or so, he may be back where he is now, which means that maybe a little higher. Yeah, get a little higher. Give him a 9-6 in November.
I'm glad that they gave him Terunofuji, even though it was sketchy, because, you know, you make a move like that, and then later on in the tournament, Myogiryu can't fight Terunofuji. It's a little messed up. But, Ura, because he's going to drop again, we may not see that match ever again with Terunofuji and Ura. You just don't know.
Yeah.
So it's just good that they decided to give it to us. Enho never ended up fighting a Yokozuna, did he? Yeah, did he fight Kakuryu before he got dropped down?
Might have.
I hope that... I seem to recall that he did, but I could be totally wrong about that. It is good when you have a popular wrestler to just give him... Like, it gives me hope that if... Hoshoryu... He might not get his chance now, but... It gives me a little bit of hope that if Hakuho is in a tournament, they might let Hoshoryu fight him, because these are once-in-a-lifetime opportunities because careers are so short.
Looks like the highest he got was 4...
He did, Kakuryu.
Kakuryu, there it is.
Obviously, he lost, but just to see him fight a Yokozuna, it's good that they did that, because then Enho drops in a Juryo, we're never going to see that again. We might not even have a Yokozuna by the time Enho gets back up.
That would be unfortunate.
It would.
Yeah, so they gave him when he was 4. Yep. It was a fun match.
I was really hoping that Hoshoryu would stay in the top, because I want to see him fight Hakuho. I think everybody needs to see that.
They may do that for us too. There's certainly enough momentum going on that, but
So they set a precedent letting Ura fight Terunofuji.
A bit of a precedent, I think so, yeah. So, next up, we have Onosho. Megashira 6 was 10-5. This was the Onosho that got us all excited back in the day. Here, there's another resurgence, another oozing of confidence. Like there was, like when we saw Onosho, this was before his fall from grace. They beat somebody, had like the little nod.
Yep.
Like you could feel it. You could feel that he knew it. Yusho contention, which was just great to watch.
And I really hoped that he was going to hang in till the final day because, I don't know, I just think that if he could fix some things, he could be a decent match for Yokozuna.
He's showing smaller improvements. Like he had issues with getting reversed and some issues with footwork. Some of it's still there. Like he just got insta-slapped down by Meisei, which is just, I mean, that's still getting there. But there were some reversals from his fellow Yusho chasers, Endo and Okinoumi. Both of them are really good at reversing people at the edge.
Right, and they can beat anybody.
And Onosho beats both of them.
Right.
And like an Onosho in July would have lost to both of them, it feels like.
Agreed.
Now, whether or not this was sort of he was on a hot streak and then he sort of like let the energy drive him forward, or maybe something's finally clicked and this is his way up. He's gonna have the chance that Kiribayama had in November.
Right.
Which is he's gonna be in striking distance of all the good people. Which means that it is put up or shut up.
Right, and the thing is, I do think Onosho runs on the fiery emotions. And he also has that perfection thing, like, he just puts all the power into this attack. And when it starts to go south, you don't know what's going to happen after that. He seemed to show a little bit more resilience this time around. It wasn't just one and done. It was, okay, I didn't push you out, but I've got some other tricks up my sleeve. That would suggest that he has worked on some things and that we will see a more improved Onosho. I hope that's the case because I think everybody's always been waiting for it. They always thought he had the ability to be that way. And it would be great if just like, as he's sort of in mid of his career, he's still on the young side, but now he's getting older.
Getting on in age.
It would be nice to see him just sort of wash those young years away and be like, this is who I am as a fighter.
Yep, I think that's I think what we're seeing here. He's working on his plan Bs. He's working on what to do if he doesn't blast him out in 3 seconds. And that's, if Onosho can get those things worked out, he's going to be dangerous. A new name to that Sanyaku pile.
I will say it was very hard to see him lose his Kanto show at the end.
That was rough. But
you could see the pain on his face, like,
no. He was so mad.
I hope that's, like, the driving force to make him work harder and, like, earn that thing.
This is, like, in a way, it's like, it's the perfect loss. Mm-hmm. Because he's like, he's just like, if I was just a little stronger, he's just like, next time I'll be 3 times as strong.
And I hope so.
Ooh, that'll be fun. That's the Onosho that has to be there in November if he wants to make a break.
My only issue is he's gonna go up into the territory where he'll fight will he fight Ozaki? I would think so.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be.
So from a selfish standpoint, every time Onosho fights Takakeisho, I do get nervous.
Takakeisho thrashes him though.
He does, but it's like one of these days Onosho's gonna turn it around on him.
Maybe.
I don't want to be watching that.
Let him fight Shodai first.
Yeah, do what you want to Shodai. I'm not trying to be against you, Shodai. This is just an unfortunate thing that I have a favorite.
Shodai needs motivation, okay? He needs a rival.
Angry Shodai might show up if Onosho is like blasting away at him.
Angry Onosho versus Angry Shodai. Come on. The best of both.
It would be like a Dragon Ball Z match.
It'd be great. Come on.
Kamehameha waves everywhere.
So, eyes on him. His real test is November.
Yes.
So, next up, Shimanoumi. 8-7. Squeaked that out. Making sure a 7 East. Absolutely clawed for that because he had the last 4 wins to get him to 8-7. He had tape, like a lot of tape on the left knee. Oh no, he always had tape on the left knee. I'm reading my note backwards. And that Never Say Die grip was not there.
Yeah, he felt like a shadow of who we usually see. It was very strange.
It was, it's the injury. Like,
exactly.
This is a guy who outlasted Terunofuji on the edge. I'm like, and that was not this guy. I am glad to see that he got his 8-7, so he's able to at least scrape by enough wins, fought through the injury and the pain, and seemed to show, like, in the back of his mind, it was like he knew he couldn't go up against the rope because that's how he got a few of his losses. And particularly when he was up against the Makakoshi, he got aggressive.
Right, because the last thing you want to do is, like, permanently damage your knee on the edge. You know, you do need to live to fight another day. So he was very strategic in getting the wins that he could get without taking unnecessary risks.
Yeah. There was an aggression also. Shimanoumi is usually, he's more like ebb and flow kind of a fighter. Yeah. Like, he'll go forward, then you go forward, he goes forward, and basically one of those pushes will be the win. But for him, he was chasing after it. Probably because he knew that maybe he couldn't ebb and flow. Or maybe he's just...
It's like he saw an opening, and he would take the opening when he had to take the opening. So, it will be good to see him next tournament because he really did sort of fade into the background.
Fade a little bit.
His character was not there to shine through.
So, like, this 8-7 is a massive 8-7 because it's him overcoming adversity.
Yep.
That can get him some momentum going forward. This is going to claw him... Didn't see this coming this soon. But if he gets another 8-7, even a 9-6, all of a sudden he's in the top 5.
Well, you know what's interesting? I do wonder when these guys get injuries like this, do they just convalesce for a while? Like, what do they do? And, like, do they ever actually heal? It would be fascinating to maybe watch somebody who's retired, because I know they won't talk about it currently. What's the winning formula for recovering from an injury and coming back in the next tournament? I'd love to know what he's going to do.
That would be an interesting conversation. I'm just happy to see that he scraped by and is starting his climb, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens when he hits a next tier of opponent.
Yep.
So, next up, Megashira 7 wins. Terutsuyoshi did not receive the Yokozuna energy.
No, and it was pretty surprising to me. I really thought we were going to see something more from him.
I thought we were going to see a lot more. We got a 5-10. He got caught out a lot. So this is something that usually doesn't happen to him. That he'll outmaneuver, he'll figure a way out, like, in or on the edge. And usually what causes him to lose is that he's a little bit too loose and crazy. But this time, a lot of people were sort of just, like, onto his tricks. And they would slap him out, or they would force him out, or they'd, like, beat him up before he can get in. He did get a leg pick in the end. Got Hidenoumi, caught him napping.
It was good to see it.
Fun to see it. Good to see it. Always like to see it. He also smacked the crap out of Ura. And again, this is everybody's focusing on Ura. So he channeled that.
It's kind of like easy to do it.
It was that Ishiura.
I was going to say that.
He held him like that and he just started cracking Ura until he started to see stars. And that
Ura probably has like several concussions.
Oh gosh. I didn't even want to think about it.
I actually felt the aura of Ishiura in Terutsuyoshi Sumo this time. This is the exact thing that happened to Ishiura where the tricks weren't working and there wasn't a backup plan. It was like, oh no, it's not working. Oh no, it's not working. Then you're done.
Then you're done.
And this is the curse of small man sumo. I think Terutsuyoshi, I don't know. I think he needs to come up with something stable and consistent that isn't the leg pick. Because the leg pick is not, it's not a consistent thing. Because a lot of people can block that. I think he needs to come up with his move, like a signature move that is not the leg pick.
He did try a couple things and then got thwarted. Like he tried to do the shoulder thing.
Yeah, and he got crushed.
He's trying for it. It's just that it didn't work out for him this time around.
Yeah, and maybe that's just sort of his fate with the style of sumo he has.
It may be. I mean, I would agree with you. I sort of expected a stronger showing from him, and he sort of didn't have the energy. Maybe he had the pressure, you know?
It felt more like he had the pressure than Terunofuji.
Like he almost like his job was to absorb the nerves.
And maybe what's happening is he's putting extra pressure on himself, and when you do that, it just throws everything off.
Yeah.
And he has to rely on, like, perfect strategy and perfect execution of moves in order to survive a lot of his fights. if your focus is thrown off even a little bit, you're going to have results where you just lose all the time.
Yeah. And as you always say, like, the little man sumo, it's a nice edge.
Always.
Always a nice edge. So maybe Terutsuyoshi is going to fall a little bit. Maybe he's going to... He has whatever demons he needs to work out too, but this is not his tournament today. But Okinoumi makes sure 80s 10-5. This was the veterans' days out.
I know,
he had
right?
A dream of a performance. Also had a new belt, and he was hungry for it. Like, he was fighting like a guy 10 years younger than he was.
Every time I think Okinoumi's out, he does something like this, where he gets a 10-5. He doesn't have that waning energy at all. Like, oh, I'm older now. Takarafuji's starting to get it a little bit. You could see it with Koto Shogiku at the end of his career. Okinoumi, like, you don't know what you're going to get. It's like opening up a present. It's like, oh, it's bouncy up and down, going to win the tournament, Okinoumi. So I'm never going to make a prediction on him. I know that we're just going to wake up one day and he's going to retire. Just like what Kakuryu did. Just out of the blue, has a bad training session. Okay, I'm done. But you'll never be able to predict it because he still has enough in the tank to have a performance like this.
Yeah, he did a really good thing. They threw some good people at him too. He beat Kiribayama. He beat Mitakeumi, which is just Mitakeumi peak.
Yeah, exactly.
Peak Mitakeumi to lose to Okinoumi. But that just shows you how much Okinoumi wanted it.
Right. There was some extra drive and incentive this time. I'm not sure what was going on, but...
Well, he's in that race. He's just like, if I stick in it, if I keep putting the wins on, that's pressure going upward. Love to see it. He's gonna be top 5 easy.
Yeah.
He's gonna be scrapping with all the people that he had to scrap with now. He's getting after all the young whippersnappers.
Show them how hard they need to work.
Yeah. New test for them. Love seeing Okinoumi in action like this. Absolute dream. So, next up, Tobizaru, Omegashira 8 West, 7-8. Just barely a 7-8. Oh my god, a 6-loss streak. Tobizaru just fell apart. So, this is one of those things that the numbers don't tell the whole thing. So, some of those losses, so like any one of these losses to Okinoumi or Ura or Onosho or even Takarafuji, if any one of those losses were a win,
he's suddenly 8-7.
He's suddenly 8-7, 9-6, 10-5. And keep in mind that Onosho, Okinoumi, they're going after that tournament. They got that energy going on. So, and the Takarafuji match I'd mentioned before, that was an Iron Man match. Tobizaru was heaving for breath, fighting for his life out there.
And that's not the first match he's had like that. In July, he had like 2 of those.
So, this 7-8 is not from a lack of trying.
No, Tobizaru is a strange case. You know, we had talked about this before, where is he a Juryo guy who found his way into the upper division? Or is he an upper division guy who got stuck in Juryo? And I don't know that I found the answer to that question yet, because he does enough to stay in, but some of his losses are bad losses.
Bad losses.
Where he is so outmatched. He's flying out of the ring. But it's like, is it because he got outmatched, or is it because he made mistakes?
I think that he at least wants to be here. And sometimes that's all you need.
He is pure, like, passion-driven.
Passion.
And that's why, you know, as a fan, he's very exciting to watch. Even in a loss, like, it stinks to watch him fly, but it's also very entertaining.
Yes.
So it's great that he's able to stay in, but I never really know if he's going to be able to. I was shocked that he pulled off a 7-8.
Yeah, that was...
I thought he was going to be a 5-10.
For a while, it looked like he was going to be 4-11.
Yeah.
But he pulled it out at the end, and so the 7-8 will keep him safe, at least. And if he's a little bit lower down, again, that razor's edge between 7-8 and 8-7. So, like, if Megashira 8 for him is, like, if that's the absolute edge of his top of his reach, then you even knock him down half a rung and he's got a winning record.
Right, and it could be like a 10-5 winning
10
record.
5, I mean, back up he goes.
Right, so he is, Mr. Knife's Edge.
Yeah, he's like, I think we found exactly where he belongs in the Banzuke with this. So, also he's fun. He played patty cake with Ura. I mean,
that was interesting.
Just leaning against each other, holding each other's hands.
Well, you could just picture Tobizaru like, he's as crazy as I am. I wonder what's going to happen.
Crazy matches, which is also why we like Tobizaru. So please continue to fight with that spirit. So next up, Aoiyama, Megashira 9 East, 7 and 8. I was a little worried about him at first. He sort of just like tuned into his own channel near the end and started smashing people around with
the grunts and all. Coming at you like a raging bull.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see him compared to, once we get further down, a lot of the other struggling veterans. And that he does seem, his biggest weapon seems to be his focus. And also his massive arms. But
like how he tracks people.
But he tracks people. There's a couple of times that people, like Terutsuyoshi in particular, tried to get in on him. And Ura was just watching him. I think Aoiyama just got sick and tired of getting smashed by Enho. He's just like, no more of these little people.
I'm just going to squash you like a fly.
Squash him. So, this is it turned into a very textbook Aoiyama Yusho.
But it almost wasn't.
Almost wasn't. I got a little worried for my man, but...
I was starting to worry that, like, all your favorites were going to be, like, either dropping out or injured or...
I'm going to lose one, I think, but we'll get to that. But fading a little bit, as with all of these veterans, you hit a point where it's sort of borrowed time, and...
But you never know. I mean, he could pull an Okinoumi. He did it to you a couple tournaments ago.
He did. In March, he was a dream. So, the dream's not dead. But at this point, we're...
Being cautious.
We're holding the line. So, next up, Hidenoumi. Making sure 9 West, 7 and 8. Again, a 7 and 8 that is a breath away from an 8 and 7. The two brothers at this point are now in, like...
The same category, yeah.
So Hidenoumi had a little bit of bad luck on him. And again, this the kind of thing that really makes a 7 and 8 a bit of bitter pill. It's like I'm a budding Hidenoumi fan. I'm really liking it. Like particularly when he shows his true power.
Right.
So day 1 he gets an eye poke against Chiyotairyu right out the gate. Yeah. So already off to a weird bad start. While fighting against, and here's one that's doubly interesting. So, fighting Myogiryu, he doesn't put his hands down. The referee says start. So, he knows it's Amada because he didn't put his hand down.
Yeah, that stunk.
On the replay, Hidenomi's just like, you mother...
Right? It's like, dude!
So, again, how about this? That match is normal. He wins that. Not only is he 8 and 7, but Myogiryu is out of the Yusho race. All of that decided on one bad call by a ref.
That is the thing about the refs. In any sport, it's like, you can actually be a determining factor. So you have to be very, very good at your job. Yeah, that's...
I'm not going to go on football vibes. It's not what we're here for.
It's funny, though, that you bring that up, because I forgot the second component of Myogiryu.
If it was almost against anyone else, I'd be like, whatever. But it was against Myogiryu. What if Hidenoumi got the belt first? What if? God, losing my mind. And he's 7 and 8. So
yeah, that's a bitter pill.
Things, though, that he needs to work on. He does seem to have a little bit of a slow time on the Tachiai. Again, he was the guy who got leg pick. There was a couple of fights that it looked like the Tachiai happened, and he wasn't aware it happened, and he got blasted out.
And a little bit of that is on him.
That's what he needs to work on.
Yeah.
He then, like you had mentioned before, does some really good sumo. Gets the belt power.
That final day, Watanage was pretty sweet on Hoshoryu. And that's when I saw the smoldering behind the eyes where he's like, no.
Hidenoumi has Hoshoryu's number. There's something about, sometimes it's these weird things, you're like...
You just can read certain opponents.
Why does Hoshoryu keep beating Shodai? It's just at some point you think Shodai would figure it out. It just doesn't happen. The brain's in there. He also does a lot of good, like out-muscling. So like usually when he's fighting other belt people, if they sort of latch on at about the same time, he's going to win it.
Right.
Also, I think he threw Aoiyama, which is very difficult to do.
Yeah, you got to have some power.
So Hidenoumi, keep doing what you're doing. It, like again, like some of that 7 and 8 is all on him. That's him needing to grow, and it's these little things.
It's amazing how the little things change the whole dynamic of your tournament.
It's just the way it is. But I'm like, if he works on the things he can control, and then he takes an extra couple trips to the shrine, to work on his bad energy that's going on, then right back to it.
There you go.
Right back to it. So next up, Chiyotairyu 10 East. We're in the double digits now, 7 and 8. So sort of fell off at the end, but a lot of his wins were the kind of wins we wanted to see from Chiyotairyu.
Right, to show that his power in the Tachi was back.
Yes.
Because that's what we were questioning all that time was, did he just lose the essence of his sumo and now he's just kind of gonna, float on the surface of the water and be done?
Yeah, like there were a couple matches he just, they're done. And then there's a lot of like the push-pull sumo that is his textbook move. Like he just crashed him to the ground. So it was good to see that the power was back, that the technique, the mental confidence was back. It's just then he gets to 7 and 8 because, again, like let's see, Daieisho, Hoshoryu. Why is he fighting these guys?
Right. Takayama makes sense. Kotonowaka makes sense.
Okinoumi sort of early enough along so that it's fine, but. This is some of the stuff that was going on. I was like, why are we fun? Let Chiyotairyu be.
Right? It's like...
But that's... Now, the matchmaking thing, I feel like there's a little bit more wiggle room there. But the takeaway for me is Chiyotairyu still not 100% of the way, but he's moving in the right direction now.
Right, and that's kind of the important
thing. Even if the record doesn't reflect it, like the performance is... It's getting there.
Right, you can only hope that he learns some things from this tournament that makes next tournament better.
Yes, that he's slowing the fall. And then hopefully in November
there is no fall.
There is no fall. It's an 8 and 7. It's the other way. Oh. So next up, Myogiryu 10 West 11 and 4. Oh my god.
Shocking.
My god, was I made I was writing out my notes. I'm like, I could not be happier for Myogiryu. I was just like, there is one way I could be happier for Myogiryu. If he won.
Exactly.
Him and Endo both have 11 and 4, but like that 11 and 4 for him was on the last day. He was almost 12 and 3. He was a hair's breadth, just so close.
But had he won on the last day and Terunofuji won, he still wouldn't have won the cup.
Terunofuji still had to lose for the playoff. Yes.
But it would have been nice for him to have 12 wins instead of 11. There is a big difference.
It's a big difference. Also, imagine in the mind of Shodai, Myogiryu wins. And now Shodai has a reason to fight.
Right.
Shodai, the last day you put Shodai against Terunofuji, what is he going to do to him? Nothing. He's got his 8 wins.
He knows he's outmatched.
He knows he's outmatched and outgunned. He's got nothing to fight for, and this win does nothing for him.
Right, so it's like, why would I even risk him doing to me what he did to Takayasu?
So, imagine if Myogiryu was 12 and 3, and Shodai's just like, screw this guy.
Right, exactly.
I'm putting him in the ground.
Exactly.
That would have been interesting. There's just a lot of what ifs. I'm master of speculation because there was just so much stuff.
Well, everything, in general, everything in sumo is a razor's edge situation. Just tweak the record slightly and you have a totally different tournament. Now, that can go either way, though. Tweak these records slightly in an opposite direction, and Terunofuji just runs away with this thing.
Oh, yeah. Like, Terunofuji could have been 15-0.
He could have.
Not a doubt.
That Daieisho Meisei thing, just everything aligned perfectly.
Yeah. Oh, man. But I'm just so happy for him. Double-digit wins.
He's going to go up.
He's going to go up.
Pretty high.
He's going to go up. Now, I mean, the last time this happened to him, he went 0-7, but...
It doesn't mean it'll always happen.
Exactly. Also, it's like, you know what? If a win like this means that he just gets clobbered in 2 months, so what?
Right. At least he's like getting to fight the top guys.
He got the technique prize.
Yeah, it's probably been a while since he got the Technique prize. I think he had been getting Maki Koshis like back to back for a little while.
A little bit of a concern, but
like Okinoumi, don't count him out yet.
Both of them,
they are a pair. Those two.
They're gonna stop when they're dead.
Exactly.
The Tamawashi's still gonna be going.
I know, right? Tamawashi's like, well, that's great that you're dead, but I'm immortal.
I'm immortal.
So I will never die. Sumo will end before I leave.
Basically. I'll be like, what are you? I'm a sumo wrestler.
What's sumo?
We're in the futures.
Why is he still wearing that mawashi?
Sumo stopped 500 years ago. What are you doing?
I'm immortal.
So, next up, back to back absolute best case scenarios here. Endo, of all people to be happy about. 11 East, 11-4.
That was shocking. I didn't see that coming. And even like in the very beginning of the tournament, I was shocked at the end of it. Like, this was a quiet, until I think he got to about day 12. This was a quiet performance where he just went in the ring and did what he had to do. And I think I just always expected him to have an Endo-like loss, and it just didn't come that way.
It never happened. So, there's two interesting things about this. One is that he did this at all.
Yeah, like, we kind of thought he was dead in the water.
So, I had written him out. Like, he had the crazy May that he beats Terunofuji's in the Yusho race, and he sort of all falls apart in a very Endo manner. Right. And then in July, he gets injured and he's out, and we're just like, oh, there it goes.
Right, it's done.
Done. But now it comes back.
Yeah, and I think this is the first time in a very long time that he's put up performances like this, especially after an injury. So, like, this is, in a way, this is back-to-back really good performances out of Endo. This is the optimism just coming front and center. But after what it seemed that, it was like a lot of this was, I'm going to win this for you, buddy. And then he gets injured and he sort of flops away. And so you sort of see him coming back and just demolishing. And what makes this legitimate is that he beats Takanosho, Kiribayama, and Okinoumi. All three people who don't want to lose to him, and are also on a tear. Like, right. This is why you got a 7 and 8 out of Takanosho. Stuff like this. So this is an Endo who's not giving up. Right. He tasted what it could be like to have the cup, and he let that drive him. We had always been talking about what would it take to drive Endo. Yes. And it seems like there's a consistency there. So there's some real... I mean, I'm connecting a lot of dots here. Naturally. This is an Endo that I've been hoping was there. And November now, he can go up to like Megashira 4 and then get a 4 and 11 in November, and then it'll be egg on my face. But that's but we're used to that. This is the life of a sumo fan. Uh-huh. I will say this. I don't want to get too into the complain region. I'm just simply expressing my feeling. Day 14 was incredibly disappointing for such a good tournament. And part of it was the Endo Ichinojo match. Now, the tournament where Ichinojo, like, almost, challenged for the title, he did what he did to Endo there. That slap down. And it just, sure, it's a legal move. Sure, it's, everybody does it. But it's like day 14, this guy's in the title race, and to see him lose like that was like so disappointing. It's like you at least want it to be a knockout, drag out, 3-minute thing, and it's like, like everything's gone with a silly slapdown? A desperation slapdown. Why in the world did they put Ichinojo against Endo on day 14? Like, can you give us something, man? Can you give us something way more exciting than that? That was a bummer. There is this weirdness, sort of a why did this happen? There could be a little bit of they were also trying to protect Takakeisho, so maybe there were several factors, like because he could have fought Takakeisho, which would have been interesting, but Takakeisho's in bad shape and Endo probably would have beat him. But at least I think a Takakeisho Endo match would have been more interesting. But who knows? It was such a letdown. It was like we've had such exciting tournaments at the very end that I wanted the tournament to be as exciting as it had been. And then it was like, oh, so we're not going to get to see Endo fight Terunofuji again. I would have loved to have seen it.
What could have been. A lot of that in this tournament almost feels like it was. There was so much going on that sort of the things that could have happened stand out.
Mm-hmm. Can't get it perfect, I guess.
Get it. So, somebody who, well, I won't call it perfect, but got it together.
Got it together, figured it out.
Koto Echo, 8-7 from 11 West. Spirited fighting in both victory and defeat. He was 2-6. And looking very much like the loss from July stuck to him. But then he gets 6 wins to grab out an 8-7. Wins on the last day to Aoiyama, not a gimme for him.
Right, especially because Koto Echo's usual issue is just getting overpowered.
Yes.
And that just didn't happen, which gives you some encouragement that maybe he's figured out that issue.
Yeah, first week he did get outgunned by a few people.
He did, which is why I thought, okay, here we go again.
Yeah, so it's something in the second week clicked for him. He was able to impose his will. He was, like, dragging people around.
Right, he had that extra aggression that I've been saying he needs, but didn't think he had.
Yeah, this 8-7 is a mixed bag of things. At least this means that he's not going down anymore.
Exactly. Now he can start to make a little bit of a tear.
A little bit of a build. So he does need the slow burn. If nothing else, he's starting to find things that work.
And he needs that because he's had a lot of losing and not seeing what works because everything he tries failed.
If we can build off of that, I think we're going to have a winning formula that I can run with. But we'll
have to see.
Always a big question mark for him. I'm just rooting for you, buddy.
I do think he's upper level compatible, but the way he's been fighting lately, he's looking like a Juryo man until this tournament.
Yeah.
So I really hope that that's over and we're turning the page.
Hoping. We need this guy. I like him. I don't want to put it back on the shelf.
We don't need to lose somebody else.
I'm like a 3-year-old shopping with their mom, and I grab a box of Koto Echo off the shelf, and mom's just like, put that back. I'm like, nah!
And mom's like, okay.
Okay.
Only if you agree to clean your room when you go home. That's what this tournament was. Good job cleaning your room, John.
That's that we're going to. Alright, so next up, Ishihara. So, in the same token that Hakuho and by extension Enho are not in the tournament, as is Ishihara due to COVID shenanigans. This one is probably going to, well, for me, I feel like it's going to put a damper on Ishihara because he came out of July with a lot of good energy that he'd been looking for.
Right, so in this case, the COVID thing hurt him. But rest is always a welcome thing.
This is sort of where it's... If Ishihara was fighting on this one, I was going to be very excited for him. I wanted to see if that 9-6, that dominant 9-6, turned into another one, turned into a 10-5.
Right.
Now we're back to a question mark. Now, with these people, as you mentioned, rest is something they never get. That's always the blessing in disguise. Right,
it's a double-edged sword. You get the rest to, heal up a little bit, but then you get the rust. So you get the rest versus the rust. And it depends on who you are, what you prefer. Our next guy certainly doesn't benefit from rest at all.
No, Tochinoshin, Megashira 12 West, 7-8. I got fooled. Because he started out 2-6, and I got my shrine ready. I was in mourning. I was like, no,
the black veil.
The black veil. I got the suit out. I was ready. I was ready for it. I was prepared for death. And then he wins 5 in a row, and I'm like, he's not dead.
Right, and he won. Pretty convincingly. He altered his style a little bit, especially with that Chiyo no Kuni street fight. He out-brawled Chiyo no Kuni, which was very impressive.
That fight was absolutely beautiful. And, that's sort of... That's the textbook of that 5-win streak right there, is that he woke up. I don't know if he needs his back against the wall. Maybe he just needs a week to get settled in. Or maybe it was just one of those things that he just realized he was going to lose it and just dug a little deeper.
I think there's something to your theory that it takes about a week for him to get into it. Because when a knee gets rested, it tightens up.
Mm.
And Tochinoshin probably has the, like, pain endurance of, like, a monster. So in the first week, the issue is probably the tightness. And then it just loosens up, and then he can move again. But it's got to be quite painful in that first week. Many people probably couldn't handle that. And somehow he hangs in long enough for it to start working. And it's almost like what he's doing is fighting... Oh, God. What was the term I was thinking of? It's kind of like the Super Saiyan thing. How if you get injured and then you recover, you become stronger. Mm. He's the kind of guy that can just endure for so long that he actually gets stronger instead of weaker. But then as soon as he takes a rest, it gets tight again, and it gets harder each time to restart the engine and get yourself back into a mode where you're going to be in pain. So, yeah, it's a shame that he got the 7 and 8. He was really, really close, and I thought this time he was going to pull it off in the final day.
I'm just glad it's a 7 and not a 4, not a 3. It was not looking good. Now, hard to tell every day. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, no. It was, even though he didn't have, like, the Ozeki Tochinoshin Sumo, like, the
crane lift.
The fact he was still out-muscling people. Like, it was, like, that warm, feel-good.
And out-battling people.
Yes.
Like, that slap fest with Chiyonokuni didn't look like desperation. It looked like, I'm gonna fight you because I'm a big, tough guy and I got a lot to prove. So it wasn't like this desperate, diminutive, like, poor me Tochinoshin. It was like a guy with his back against the wall and he was going to go through you.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we get to keep him for a little while longer.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like that. Yeah, 7 and 8, I'd say it's more of a decisive 7 and 8, but at the same time, it means that he'll be here at least 2 more tournaments.
Assuming next tournament isn't like
a disaster, this one almost was. I think if we got a few more 7 and 8s out of him, throw a 9 and 5 in there for me, would you?
I was almost waiting for the moment we get a 0-15, where he just can't compete.
He'll pull out before then.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So next up, Kageyaki Megashira 13 East 7 and 8. The Kageyaki woes continue. So a year ago, September of last year, he was 8 and 7 at Megashira 5. And he looked like he belonged there. And it was just, he had the reins, he was maximizing the use of his tall frame, blasting people out. And now we're seeing that his plan B is to continue to not have a plan B. So when he fought Tochinoshin, there was a moment that they were slapping, fighting, and then Tochinoshin gets the belt, and then Kageyaki also grabs. I'm like, ooh, here comes something new. The problem is, Kageyaki was doing nothing.
Right, he gets the belt, and then he's just kind of hanging out.
He hit the entirety of his strategy when Tochinoshin grabbed his belt was to hold on for dear life and hope Tochinoshin makes a mistake.
Right, maybe he could trip his leg.
But this was Tochinoshin who is fighting for that Kachikoshi of his own and is tired of these young people pulling him around.
Right, exactly.
So Tochinoshin just takes his time with it and eventually yanks Kageyaki out of the ring. And like that is like textbook for me. It felt like all of Kageyaki's problems like encapsulated
showed up in that match
in a single event. That the hold on defense is not going to work for him. And again, it's like a year ago, just September last year. We're like, here comes this guy. And he's just lost and has kept losing since then. Now, what is nice to see is that he did win on day 15. So whenever people already hit their Makakoshi, sometimes they sort of lose the drive. Right.
For him to make sure he got a win on the last day means he hasn't given up yet.
Hasn't given up yet. But it's like, feels like Will's only going to get him so far.
And that's just the reality of the situation.
I'm not too keen on any of that.
No, it's feeling a bit doom.
Doom, it is. It's saddening, because this is somebody who, deep down in there, is that guy who got up all that way.
Well, he doesn't have Ryuden to train with. And,
it's true.
It could be an issue of having very poor training partners. But, you got to figure something out if that's the case. There's a lot of guys who don't have upper division guys in their stable. Kiribayama doesn't.
Kiribayama doesn't. Shodai, I think, doesn't.
I don't think Shodai does, no.
Yeah. So it's...
But then again, we just talked about Shodai and...
Yeah, Shodai's got his own issues, sure.
Exactly.
But hopefully Kageyaki figures out something soon, or he is going to beat up people in Juryo.
Right.
We're getting to that point, buddy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you don't have much more to go before you take the big fall.
Take the big fall. That's going to be really sad. I feel like we will have lost something.
Right, just like when Hokutofuji got knocked out, it just wasn't the same.
Wasn't the same. So, next up, Tsurugisho, 5-10, Megashira 13, West. He had something going on. So he lost the day because he popped a fever, and then they made him take a PCR test. Thankfully, he didn't have COVID. He just had a fever. That already shows that probably wasn't fighting well. He had that huge, swollen right leg that was, it was big and red.
I believe his issue was cellulitis.
It looked like he got cellulitis on the leg, and then it got mummified after that.
Right, and that's probably what the fever was.
So, Tsurugisho, the fact that he got 5 wins, I think, is pretty impressive.
Yeah, he had to be fighting through some incredible pain.
Massive. And, every time he was fighting, he was grimacing, and it was strange.
It was hard to watch.
It's upsetting. This is a guy who, when he gets it together, he's doing pretty well.
He won the Juryo show on his way back.
So what's doubly upsetting, and we're going to be talking about this right now, I guess. So his last match was against Shohozan. And why that's important is they brought up 2 people from Juryo to fight on the last day. One was Shohozan, and the other was Daiyamami, who fought Kaisei. Kaisei beats Daiyamami, giving Daiyamami a 7-8. Tsurugisho loses to Shohozan what is very likely going to be taking your seat fight.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're gonna this lower section's a bit in shambles, but if Tsurugisho loses to a guy in Juryo on the last day,
it's not a good sign.
Then that means that he may be one of the guys to be going down,
and it's likely.
So. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5. So here's where it's going to get we talk about in the top who's getting the Sanyaku slot. Now we're talking about in the bottom who's going to be getting the boot.
Mm-hmm.
So historically, when you pair somebody in the top division and the bottom or in Juryo together on a fight like this, it is like a Darwin fight.
Right, and they are doing it to see whether Shohozan should come back up. Yeah.
So, specifically, Shohozan, whose seat Shohozan's going to take? Shohozan did absolutely beautiful, so we're seeing him again. And so is the 5-10 and losing to Shohozan going to keep Kaisei from being on the chopping block? Is it going to... But Tsurugisho just had a bad time of it, and unfortunately, it may be with dire consequences.
Right.
Unfortunate.
Another one of your guys.
Yeah, so next up, Kaisei, 14, he's 6-9. 6-9 at this rank is not good. A lot of his wins were against other people who were having trouble, which is not a good sign. Now the fact that he won in the Darwin match with Daiyamami
matters.
Well,
it could matter.
It could matter. So what they could also do, and we're going to talk about this when we get into Juryo, is just jump him anyway. I feel that 6-9, but beating a guy from Juryo on the last day they're putting him on the bottom rung.
Right, he's going to go lower, but he's done enough to stay.
But the 6-9 does mean that his future is now up to the whims of fate.
Right, he can't save himself.
He did. I mean, Kaisei fought as Kaisei fights in this tournament. It's just that he got paired up against a lot of really hungry people. Right. They gave him Ura. They gave him Endo when Endo was on a tear. He lost against Chiyomaru, who was having a great time of it until they fed Chiyomaru to the wolves.
Myogiryu,
yeah. So
Chiyonokuni.
This is just sumo sumo consuming.
Right. Some people are going to get the bad breaks.
There's only 42 positions
exactly
in the top division, and if you get a 6 and 9 when you're this low, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Could be it for Kaisei. That's gonna suck for me.
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe he'll tool around in Juryo for a little while.
Could be 17 East if we're lucky.
He could be. Because we know Chiyotairyu going to go up.
Oh, yeah. It's out of our hands at this point. Kaisei's ours, everybody's, except the very noble group of people who put together the Banzuke. All right. So next up, happy story. Almost. Just barely.
Just barely.
Takayama gets his Kachikoshi.
For the first time, because he's done multiple tournaments where either he was up 7-4 and then winds up 7-8, or 7-7 on the last day and he loses. For the first time in a long time, he was on the right end of the final day.
8-7. So it seemed like Takayama had... Like, it was sort of just like showing his cards, it felt like.
Yeah.
It was powerful. He was hungry. He was blasting people out in that ooh kind of way. Like, you see that, you're like, more of that, more of that.
Right. It's almost like two football helmets colliding.
Some of that. But a lot of his Achilles heels are also very much on display. He can get outwitted. He can get outmaneuvered.
His footwork is real bad.
So it's not just the elbow.
Right. I mean, he's always got the foot and the ankle taped, so... I don't know which is bothering him, if it's the whole thing. And foot and ankle injuries take forever to heal. Mm-hmm. So that's probably why his footwork is not great. So it's a struggle for him. He's always going to be easy to throw off balance. Yeah. So it's nice that for once he's not looking at Juryo.
It's a massive 8-7 for him because it was the 8-7 on the last day, always his curse. Gets key wins. So, I mean, it's one of those things that just a little bit tighter on the footwork, and that's a 9-6. At the same time, like, for him, this has to be a page-turning moment. This has to be
we have to go somewhere with this.
Going now. Foot to the gas. I feel like this is for a guy who was plagued. Also, remember, last tournament, he was passed up.
Yes, he was
promotion. Mm-hmm. They were just like, nah, he's staying. We're going to take Yamamoto instead.
Which didn't work out too good for him.
Yeah, well, not his fault, but...
No, not at all.
Yeah, but, like, for Takayama, like, this is finally something that is...
Gone his way.
His hard work pays off. So, come on, Takayama. Come on, Yusho.
Now, John, that's a very positive outlook.
Well, he needs that.
No, he does. He needs to be thinking that optimistically.
He needs to be gunning for Hokage. That's what he needs right here.
Exactly.
He needs that. Because
he's got enough in him to think in those terms. You know, he's got a lot of spirit. And that spirit is what's keeping his broken body going.
Yes. So, sort of hone the technique and keep the fires stoked. Mm-hmm. So next up, as mentioned, Yamamoto, who I feel was just another knee.
Another knee.
No knees are safe. 4-11, Megashira 15 East, day 4, fighting against Takayama.
Interesting how that worked out.
So weird. Knees one of the wooden seats while being thrown out, like on the replay.
I didn't notice that's what happened.
Or his knee fell down on the seat hard.
Oh.
And so, like, I'm thinking, like, it caught the corner, and, like, he's going at full speed.
Right.
And so he was on one leg the entire rest of the tournament. So, the remaining 3 wins that he got was on bad legs. And...
Which shows you something about his talent.
So, Yamamoto convinced me in the last tournament that he belonged up here. Now, he almost had a complete and utter disaster of a collapse, which would have been, like... Takayama level
It was
tragedy.
like Takayama and Yamamoto's fortunes flipped.
It did. So, bad news is that there is no saving this boy. And he's right back down to Juryo with his bum knee. The good news is, I fully expect him to go down to Juryo, thrash, and come right back. So, he's just taking a pause break.
So, if his knee holds up... We're going to get to start over again in a couple of tournaments.
Yes. Like, it seems like this is pure, I banged my knee falling out of the ring.
What can I do?
He scraped for wins, couldn't get many. And now he's just taking a trip down to Juryo, where, again, hopefully...
Juryo's like the retirement home.
Well, this is the problem when you go down to Juryo. You don't always come back up.
Right. You might, that might be your permanent home. You, show up to assisted living, and then you suddenly are transferred to permanent care.
You can never... the hope is that he's, in terms of sumo years, young...
Right.
And able to bounce back, and that we see him again... It's just, we're not seeing him in November.
Nope. It's like, we're going to have to forget about you on this list unless you do some crazy things in Juryo.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he gets a 9 and 5 in November in Juryo,
he'll come right back.
That's again, sort of just like, it's fine, go to the penalty box.
Right, just hang out, calm down, maybe think about some stuff.
God, just work on the tachi. We'll be fine. It'll be good. Next up, another person... going the wrong way. Chiyono, 15 West, 411 as well. This one also, for Chiyono, him and Hidenoumi, I like for the same reasons, is that, you'll see their inner strength come out.
And you'll see some, really quality sumo.
Real good sumo. His belt work, Chiyono's defense is, when he does it, it's just it's so cool. That's some really good stuff. So, where Hidenoumi, he has it together. He just has a little bit of bad luck and working on a little bit of timing. Chiyono just has too many things to work on to be this high.
Right.
And that's the unfortunate truth is, a lot of times I was writing notes while watching, and he's just he did really well here, but then he lost. It's really great technique, then he lost. Then he lost.
Right, it's just not consistent enough. It's you got to pull that technique until the match is finished.
It's a game of inches. Yep. It's at knife's edge, as we've been saying a lot. So for Chiyono, he is too far off the pace to keep rank. And now for somebody like him, will he go down in Juryo, learn a few new tricks, and come back a new man? Is he going to go down in Juryo and then hang out with Enho in the retirement home?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't.
It's just hard to say because we didn't get to really see much of him in this tournament.
This is what I feel is the worst, is that we're just starting to get to know him.
And now we have to lose him again.
And now he's going down to Juryo, and we're it's a new kid comes out. He's just
And the weird thing is you can watch Juryo matches, but they lack the intensity. They're just not as interesting to watch.
You feel the difference.
Yeah, and part of that's probably the crowd energy because the crowd just doesn't show up until the main event.
There's some of the people who are career Juryo people do not.
They don't some people are definitely phoning it home. I just got to do what I got to do to keep my rank, and so that hunger's not always there.
It's a different kind of a thing. We'll see if we can get into Juryo in time, but
got it.
And for the short term, it's just a little box we put people in. And sometimes they come out. That's fine. Chiyono, maybe you'll come back. Somebody who is coming back, Chiyomaru, 8 and 7, 16 East. Spirit, this is an 8 and 7 that he earned. This wasn't a scrape by 8 and 7. This wasn't a skin of their teeth 8 and 7.
Ref makes a bad call 8 and 7.
No, none of that. This was footwork, power, timing people. It's the veteran bag of tricks. This is the veteran bag of tricks, but he's still not 100%. You have the Okinoumi and Myogiryu veterans who are just smacking people all over the place. Yeah,
I'm not sure what's going on with Chiyomaru, if it's just simply age slows him down or if he's racked with injuries, but he doesn't seem to be racked with injuries.
No, it's just, I think it's just that there's a certain level that he can compete at.
And that's it.
So just if you're above his level, you'll win. If you're at his level, and this is actually what I found particularly pleasing, is that when Chiyomaru was in sort of a more equal battle, he was the aggressor.
Right.
He was fighting for it. And you always want to see that because it means that they're trying. It means that they'll keep going. I mean, still 8 and 7, the number is a number. It doesn't tell the whole story, but it
tells enough of a story for you to see,
So he didn't do well enough to get a buffer, but he did well enough to keep us around, so we have a lime green belt in November.
Which is good, because he's been doing this down to Juryo, back up, down to Juryo, so at least we get to see some consistency.
For at least one
more. For a little while,
One more. So, Next up, Megashira 16 West. Tokushoryu was spared by the grace of the Banzuke. 4-11, he is gone.
Right, there's no second chances here.
No, like, they may dump him in mid-Juryo with a 4-11.
Right.
And, like, this... So, where Chiyomaru earned his 8-7, Tokushoryu earned that 4-11. Just getting thrashed, beaten at his own game, out-muscled, out-moved. It was...
Well, it's interesting because Tokushoryu has been on this slide for a little while, and it just... Not from a deserving standpoint, like, oh, he deserves it, but it's, like you said, he earned this. Like, this is where he's at.
This is where he's at.
And maybe he can, remedy that in Juryo and, like, make a comeback, but for now, this is where he belongs.
It's where he belongs. It's, I will always remember that Cinderella Yusho. He'll, like, and
that'll be with him forever.
We mentioned this when he got it. That, like, he didn't need to prove anything to anyone. That he had this moment is his and it's his forever. Mm-hmm. And we're just glad to see him for as long as we had him.
And he made a lot of fans with his, genuineness and...
Honesty, the kindness, the jolly sumo.
The very, like, openly candid, funny interview.
No Daieisho stuff. Like,
none of this. My brand of sumo. I'm done talking.
He talked. He was real. He's human.
He was having fun.
So good. But you can have fun in Juryo too, I guess. And please prove us wrong. Get a 12-3 in Juryo. Come crashing back. I'd love it.
Right. Exactly.
I'd love it.
Sometimes we make predictions that don't turn out to be true that are good.
That are good. Yeah. Happy accidents.
We're certainly not good at picking winners. So.
Ichinojo is 8-7. So close. Anyway, so
Takayasu out of the tournament.
He was 7 wins from getting the show.
I really shouldn't pick anyone because I'm ruining their careers.
It's fine. Right. So, interestingly enough, one of the best stories is last. Chiyonokuni 9-6. Finally, a healthy Chiyonokuni. A Chiyonokuni imposing his will. And this is the kind of sumo we like Chiyonokuni for.
Yes, you need a guy who just wants to scrap.
Yeah, so we had mentioned before the fight with Tochinoshin. And so I've written down that as a brawl worthy of Viking meat halls, because they went after it. Another fight with Endo was like that too. They were just...
When you wrote that in your notes, I could picture the Viking helmets and like full Viking gear,
full furs,
and those two like fighting each other.
So my favorite part, and for me, it was like, sometimes like you already know that you like somebody, and then you see something, you reaffirm it all over again. So at the end of that fight, I didn't notice it when it was happening. I sort of noticed it when it was happening because like at the end of the fight, I saw Tochinoshin like nod toward Chiyonokuni, and I'm just like, oh, good, he liked it too. On the slow mo. You see Chiyonokuni turning around, he's grinning ear to ear.
He's like having a blast.
They're these two guys. And so this is also what's nice about Chiyonokuni is that he brings this out of other people.
Yes.
This energy, the Viking mead hall energy, I'm calling it that from now on.
Yes.
Is like this, like it's infectious. This is how he fights, it's what he's good at, and then other people will join him.
Right, and the thing is, because sumo has such strict cultural rules in terms of you're not supposed to overly celebrate and this and that, what is lost is that sort of camaraderie that really does exist behind the scenes in the sport, because though you're always rivals, you knew each other in high school, you knew each other in college, you trained together outside, even if it's like these interstable bouts. Like, Ichinojo and Terunofuji, met each other on a plane on the way to Japan. And though they've been fighting against each other, they're still friends. It was like you lifted back the curtain for a second, and these guys battled hard, but yet they were still friends at the end of it.
At the end. It was so good to see. And the 9-6 means he'll go up pretty far.
And I think that he can handle higher level competition. It's just... He's got to get healed, and it may be hard for him to do. He has a rough style.
But he held it together this tournament. No bandages on his shoulders the whole 15 days.
It was so nice.
And the power stayed consistent. He didn't fade. He didn't get staggered. it's always going to be like every tournament you're like, please hold it together.
It's another Takakeisho.
Another Takakeisho in that way. And so, like, if he can climb high enough back up, we'll see if he can build the momentum, see if his body can handle it.
We have small goals, like just to see Chiyonokuni fight a Yokozuna. I really want to see that badly. I would love to see him fight Terunofuji. I'm confident Terunofuji would beat him, but I am also confident Chiyonokuni would really challenge him, and that you might get a smile. Terunofuji's hard to get a smile from.
Hard to get a smile out of him.
He was smiling in July though with Meisei. Like, they were exchanging some joke or something, and so I know Terunofuji has a sense of humor, and I think Chiyonokuni could bring it out. So, what a nice end to an otherwise up and down situation.
We'll end on the up. So, for special prizes, there are only 2. Onosho's was
taken away,
which is, I'm fine with that. Like, the concept of it kind of sucks. But anyway.
Right.
We had the outstanding performance, the Shukunsho for Daieisho for getting the Kimboshi and for being 10 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
And the technique prize for the Ginosho for Myogiryu for being an absolute baller. And I think both of those are well-deserved. Smaller number of... Like, there are only 3 presented.
Right. And sometimes they give you multiple...
Sometimes there's 4 or 5, but there's just 2 today. That's fine.
It is one of those strange things about sumo though, where it's like they have to be in a certain mood.
They do.
It's a very flux choice.
Yeah, it's just like you didn't even.
It's like I don't like the look on your face today. No prize for you.
Nah, to go to Endo, you're like, what did Endo do lately for me? It's
like, I don't know. I liked that guy last term, but now I'm soured on him. You get nothing.
Whatever. But props to them. Both of them definitely well earned. So the last point is going to be the Juryo turnover. So we had made mention that there are 5 people, 13 West and below, with losing records. And there are 4 people that are definitely having a upwards moving record. So first off, congratulations to Abi for being the Yusho winner of Juryo.
We're finally going to see him come back.
Abi guaranteed back. Shohozan 10 and 5 beats a guy in the top division.
Should be coming
back. Sadanomi 10 and 5 at Juryo 3, almost guaranteed to come back. Aqua 9 and 6 at Juryo 1 West.
If he's not coming back, there's some shifty business.
So also, like, we look at Tokushoryu 4 and 11, Chiyono 4 and 11, Ichiyama 4 and 11. Those 3 guys are gone.
Right. Guaranteed.
Pretty much guaranteed.
The question is Tsurugisho at 5 and 10. So
if they're putting up 4 people, so if it's going to be Aqua, Sadanomi, Shohozan, and Abi, so then it's going to be a toss-up between Tsurugisho and Kaisei, and I think if Kaisei lost the last match, it wouldn't be a toss-up. But that's going to be a decision to make. Of note is that Wakamoto Haru was Juryo 3 with an 8 and 7. So what they could do is dump both of them to get fresh blood in Juryo. Worth noting that all of the other people have been in the top division before. Right.
And Wakamoto Haru is Wakatakakage's brother, right?
So an 8 and 7 means it's a bit of a harder sell to bring him back up.
It's very possible he's going to Juryo 1.
It's likely to go to Juryo 1. There's a couple other 8 and 7s that are lower down, but they're a little too far down to be really seriously contended. So, going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But we're definitely seeing Abby back, so that's going to be fun.
Yes.
And it looks like we're going to be seeing a couple of familiar faces.
Yes, these guys are all guys that we've seen in the top division who have been out. Shohozan's been out for a long time. Yeah. He is the oldest guy in the upper division if he makes it back. Abi, he had his suspension. He did his time. He fought his way back up, and now it's time to see. Abi is the most interesting of the returnees because Abi didn't go down because of injury.
He went down because of shenanigans.
Exactly. So the question is he going to come in and uproot the entire upper division situation?
Yeah.
He has the potential to.
He was Sanyaku.
Exactly. He was Sanyaku when it happened, right?
Yeah, well, around there. I mean, he had the sort of
he was doing the up and down,
but upward leaning, like maybe he's next Ozeki.
And then this thing happens without an injury. So it's like if he is in top form, but the tricky thing is he's rusty. I mean, he might have been fighting all these guys, but he's not fighting upper division guys. He might go in and get his, ass handed to him. We'll see.
Well, it's definitely Abi, very likely Shohozan, and Aqua, probably Sadanoumi, maybe a fifth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the Tsurugisho Kaisei thing is going to be interesting. Do you dump them both? Do you dump Tsurugisho? Do you dump Kaisei? This is what we're going to find out when the Banzuke comes out for November.
Wonder who the Oyakatas are.
He's calling in the favor.
Exactly. It's like, hey, I'm not sure that young gun is ready to come back. So, that concludes another one of our fabulous recaps of the end of the tournament.
Oh, man. A lot happened.
So much. And now you go into, November is also a holiday month, so, everything is just crazy. This time is going to fly because October's an interesting month. November's an interesting month. It's not going to feel like that big lull between July and September. We're going to just turn around and it's time to do this again.
Yeah, the sumo's going to come out of nowhere.
And then that's what January is going to feel like too, because we would have just gotten through those holidays.
December.
And then once you get through January, then it's going to be terrible till March. That's the dark days.
February sucks.
Yeah. January 1st, cool. January through March is just, I want to hide under the couch and nobody find me. So, we've got some exciting time coming up for these tournaments, and I can't wait to see what these guys show us.
Yes. Thank you for joining us.
We'll catch you again.